High above the kill zone of Moi City, a colossal dragon eclipsed the sun. Scorching hellfire rained from its maw, turning everything below into a landscape of ash and despair. As skyscrapers crumbled into burning ruins, terrified screams echoed through the streets. The frontline awakened ones watched in pure horror, wondering what triggered this apocalyptic nightmare. Amidst the chaos, a lone figure was spotted. It was the White Knight, the legendary lone wolf who shattered the national borders. Zichuan, the formidable master of the desolate ghost guild, could only tremble. The difference in their power was an uncrossable abyss. Cold sweat drenched his back as he questioned reality. Was this the true, overwhelming might of the Divine Dragon Empire's absolute strongest player? The defenders of Mypis were completely shattered. It defied all human logic. How could a mere mortal unleash a calamity of this scale single-handedly? Yet, the undeniable truth loomed right above them. Standing proudly atop the sovereign of the skies was the supreme necromancer, the White Knight himself. To the despairing masses below, he had transcended the realm of players. He was a walking, breathing catastrophe. With a casual wave of his hand, the gates of the underworld burst open. An endless tide of the undead swarmed forward, devouring the battlefield to harvest infinite power. But even with a godlike army at his command, his thirst for strength remained unquenched. He cherished this second chance at survival, a miracle granted by the Myriad Worlds Game. His philosophy was absolute: devour or be devoured. After all, he began this journey with a single, pitiful health point and a death sentence of just 1 year. He had crawled out from the deepest abyss of the Reaper's grasp, forging his path in blood and bone to claim his throne at the apex of the world. Let us rewind the wheels of fate. Several months earlier, on planet Blue Star, the sterile hum of life support machines echoed through a cold hospital room. There lay Mubai, trapped in his own failing body. A shadow loomed over him, mercilessly adjusting his life-saving dials. A chilling female voice whispered, warning his soon-to-be ghost to stay far away from her. The words pierced his soul like a poisoned dagger. He knew that sweet, deceptive voice anywhere. It was Liu Ruan. Although his physical vessel was totally paralyzed, his consciousness burned with absolute clarity. Confusion violently clashed with dread. Why was his life source being severed while his heart still beat? How could the woman destined to be his bride become his executioner? With eyes devoid of warmth, Ruan declared him nothing more than a breathing corpse. She called this cold-blooded murder an act of mercy. To Mubai, the cruel irony was sickeningly laughable. He used to stand at the absolute pinnacle, the undisputed gaming god of Blue Star, sitting on a staggering empire worth trillions. Yet a catastrophic accident had stripped him of everything, reducing a king to a helpless prisoner of his own flesh. Forced to hear the world go on, utterly powerless to lift even a single fingertip. A roaring storm of denial raged within his mind. How did his glorious life spiral into this pathetic nightmare? Before he could process the betrayal, the door slammed open. A blond man swaggered in, mocking Ruan for her cowardly hesitation. The newcomer was none other than Xiao Shu, Mubai's supposed brother-in-arms and closest comrade from their university days. A wicked sneer twisted the face of Xiao Shu. He taunted her, asking if genuine love had infected her fake heart, making her hands tremble at the finish line. The revelation struck Mubai like a thunderbolt. His mind reeled in absolute shock. Why was his best friend conspiring in the shadows? Xiao Shu then mercilessly laid out the final pieces of the puzzle, noting that the parents of Mubai were already out of the picture. The moment Mubai took his final breath, his staggering wealth would fall straight into the lap of Ruan. Finally, the suffocating, terrifying truth crashed over him. This viper pair had been sharing the same bed all along. Pulling the treacherous woman into his embrace, Xiao smugly confessed his mastermind plot. 5 agonizing years ago, he had planted her as a beautiful trap to ensnare the heart of Mubai. Every smile, every kiss, every promise of the future. It was all a meticulously crafted web of lies, leading directly to this fatal hour. Ruan simply rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with venom. She blamed Xiao for butchering the hit and run, complaining that his failure had forced them to dirty their own hands. The soul of Mubai shattered into a million pieces. Since their freshman year, he had bared his neck to them. He gave them his absolute trust, treating them as his cherished brother and his beloved queen. Laughing off the accusation, Xiao confessed that the resilience of Mubai was a freak of nature. Surviving that mangled wreck was mathematically impossible. But their eyes gleamed with murderous intent. Today, their victory was absolute. Even if the heavens tore open and a god descended, the death warrant of Mubai was sealed. With the casual flick of a wrist, the traitor ripped away the final tether keeping Mubai alive. He immediately turned to claim his prize, hungrily pawing at Ruan, but she coyly pushed his wandering hands away. She playfully scolded his lack of manners. Even though they were about to celebrate their newfound empire, getting intimate while a corpse watched felt like a curse waiting to happen. Barking with arrogant laughter, Xiao swept her off her feet in a bridal carry. He whispered wicked promises into her ear, vowing to thoroughly devour her in the next room. She giggled, calling him a devilish rogue. Meanwhile, the silent agony of Mubai reached its breaking point. His lungs burned like swallowed coals, gasping for phantom air as the darkness slowly closed in. The absolute depravity of the human heart was laid bare. The cruelest joke of his life had finally reached its punchline. He was nothing but a stepping stone in their grand design since day one. Boiling fury ignited his fading consciousness. His spirit screamed against the chains of his paralyzed flesh, demanding his muscles to move. He absolutely refused to perish as a victim. His pride as a king raged against the dying of the light. He would not let his legend end in a pathetic puddle of betrayal. He pushed back against the Grim Reaper with pure, unadulterated willpower. As if answering his unyielding fury, reality fractured. A colossal, mysterious gateway materialized in the skies above. The entire globe fell into stunned silence. Panic erupted in the streets, with mankind fearing the descent of an alien apocalypse. Then, a mechanical voice shattered the heavens, echoing deep within the soul of every living human. The planet Blue Star had been drafted into the ultimate crucible, the Myriad Worlds Game. The rules of reality were instantly rewritten. Everyone would be stripped of their worldly status to begin at level 1. The countdown of destiny had commenced. Mass transmigration in 30 seconds, a massive surge of data flooded their synapses. The complex mechanics of this divine game were permanently etched into the consciousness of humanity, clear as daylight. The initial disbelief evaporated in an instant. Status, windows, and mysterious system prompts manifested in their vision, proving this cosmic phenomenon was horrifyingly real. Trembling civilians stared at their hands in terror. A terrified woman muttered to herself, dreading the monstrous trials this sick game would unleash upon them. But a sharp glint appeared in the eyes of an ordinary worker nearby. He sneered at the towering penthouses above. The era of the wealthy elite was officially over, because this new reality offered absolutely zero pay-to-win privileges. Back in the lap of stolen luxury, the two traitors were rudely interrupted by glowing holographic panels. The arrogant smile of Ruan vanished into sheer panic. She cursed her lack of gaming skills, realizing her stolen wealth meant nothing against the incoming cosmic slaughter. Xiao Shu, however, practically foamed at the mouth with rage. His billionaire dreams had just gone up in smoke. Earthly riches meant absolutely nothing in this merciless new reality. Meanwhile, a sudden realization struck Ruan like a bolt of lightning. The system's golden rule echoed in her mind. As long as a single spark of life remained in a human body, they could be pulled into the Myriad Worlds Game. Could the dying Mubai actually survive the transition? Xiao scoffed with pure, venomous contempt. Even if that trash lasted 30 seconds, he would only enter the game as a useless cripple. But time waits for no one. The countdown hit 0, and the Great Ascension sequence began. Against all odds, Mubai was still breathing. To him, this wasn't just survival, it was a miraculous second chance granted by the heavens themselves. His willpower blazed like a furious inferno. He absolutely refused to die like a dog. As the teleportation triggered, pillars of blinding light shattered the sky. Global panic erupted in the streets. Countless souls screamed in terror as they were violently ripped from their comfortable lives. Yet others embraced the chaos, hungering for a fresh start. Inside the majestic Descender Temple, a solitary figure materialized from the void. It was none other than Mubai. The unbelievable truth crashed over him. His shattered body was completely healed. A mechanical voice suddenly echoed, welcoming the Blue Star humanity to the Myriad Worlds and initiating a full physiological scan. The system officially branded him as a Descender. Now, he needed a legendary alias to forge his new destiny. A cold smile played on his lips. Cheating death felt absolutely intoxicating. From this day forward, he would be known as White Knight. Registration confirmed. In that exact moment, his dormant starting talent violently awakened. Every single player stepping into the Starry Sky Hall received this divine blessing. The power hierarchy was absolute, ranging from the pathetic F rank all the way to the god-tier triple S rank. In this brutal new reality, your talent dictated your ultimate fate. White Knight held his breath, praying to whatever gods were listening for a fighting chance. But fate didn't just smile upon him. It handed him a golden ticket. The system interface glowed with a blinding light. He had awakened the S-rank forbidden talent, promotion. His heart hammered against his ribs. This level of power was utterly heaven-defying. The divine talent contained 3 absolute abilities. First was promotion, allowing him to permanently elevate any item by 1 tier for absolutely free. Second was sublimation, burning resources to force a massive 2-tier evolution. And the final, most terrifying ability was cataclysm, sacrificing his own lifespan to forcefully trigger a 3-tier mutation, complete with a world-breaking cataclysmic trait. By some miracle, the very first activation of Cataclysm required 0 sacrifice. Next came the class selection, strictly divided into 4 combat pillars. Physical combat, mystical arts, impenetrable defense, and tactical support. White Knight weighed his options. Should he walk the path of the sword or master the arcane arts? But before he could even decide, the cruel system finished evaluating his pathetic starting stats, flashing a massive red warning. Dozens of glowing class icons instantly shattered into dust. White Knight stared in absolute shock. What kind of twisted joke was this? The system ruthlessly delivered the final verdict. Due to his crippled foundation, only one dark path remained open. Without his consent, the system forcefully bound his soul. He was now a necromancer. The illusion of choice had been violently ripped away. However, commanding an army of the undead wasn't exactly a trash-tier outcome. But as his eyes drifted to his stat panel, his blood ran cold. His maximum health was permanently locked, at a miserable single hit point. Even a stray breeze could send him straight to the afterlife. And the nightmare didn't end there. The system coldly displayed his total remaining lifespan, exactly 1 year. Despair threatened to swallow him whole. What good was an S-rank talent if he was essentially a walking corpse? But with his back against the wall, it was time to go all in. He possessed the ultimate trump card, didn't he? His eyes burned with madness as he targeted his own class with the forbidden talent. Evolving a class by 3 complete tiers demanded an astronomical sacrifice of 100,000 years. Thank the heavens for that single, heaven-defying free pass. Without a shred of hesitation, he slammed the confirmation button. Cataclysmic evolution. Activate. Deafening system bells rang out. He had successfully mutated into the unparalleled hidden class. Death Sovereign. His growth potential violently exploded, guaranteeing 15 raw stat points per level. Forbidden knowledge flooded his mind, awakening 2 god-tier core skills, lifelink and summon amplification. As if that wasn't enough, an ancient aura materialized in his hands. The legendary Book of Death, his very existence now radiated the terrifying cataclysmic trait. A sinister grin spread across his face. Now this was true power. The system suddenly interrupted his glory. A world-shaking countdown echoed across the void. 10 seconds until the Myriad Worlds officially launched. Brace for impact. He had burned nearly the entire preparation phase, mastering his new abilities. But as the final seconds ticked down, the faces of Ruan and Xiao flashed in his mind. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. He swore a blood oath to hunt down those backstabbing traitors and drag them into an abyss of absolute despair. 0. The world shattered. In this merciless new reality, death carried a horrifying price. Every single death violently stripped away levels and drained 10% of your total lifespan. A minimum penalty of 10 agonizing years lost per death. But the system wasn't entirely heartless. Inside the sacred safe zones of the novice villages, the Grim Reaper's scythe was blunted. Death here only stole your hard-earned levels, sparing your precious lifespan. The gates of destiny crashed open for the blue star humanity. Millions plummeted from the sky, instantly scattering across the realms. White Knight materialized in the Divine Dragon Empire. Novice Village number 9527. The mechanical voice offered a final, hollow blessing for survival. Around him, the crowd practically vibrated with euphoric adrenaline. The legendary myths, the lit RPG fantasies, everything they had only dreamed of reading in web novels was now their flesh and blood reality. Desperate survivors scrambled to form raid parties, terrified of venturing out alone. But White Knight ignored them all. He strode directly toward the village gates, itching to test his newfound monstrous power. Dark mana swirled around his fingertips as he chanted. The earth cracked open, birthing a fragile bone-white creature, a pathetic F-rank, level 1 skeleton warrior. But it was only the first stepping stone of his future undead empire. The cast time is a mere 3 seconds. The cooldown is 30 seconds. And it burns through 20 mana. Its sheer power scales directly with his spirit attribute. But that is not all. He also holds the active skill Scorch, another terrifying F-rank level 1 ability. It unleashes pure soulfire to incinerate the enemy, dealing 150% spell damage over 5 agonizing seconds, striking with deadly precision from 30 meters away. A 2-second cast time, a quick 5-second cooldown, and it merely sips 10 mana. A smirk of deep satisfaction creeps across his face. He already has a summoning art and a magical attack, a perfect starting arsenal. Plus, he holds Lifelink, a level 1 active skill that changes everything. This absolute lifesaver connects his soul to an undead minion, sharing their health pools instantly, with 0 cast time and a mere 10-second cooldown. And the crown jewel? Summon Amplification, a god-tier S-rank passive skill with boundless potential. It slashes casting and cooldown times in half, and aggressively boosts his minion's attributes by a staggering 500%. He cannot help but chuckle. Possessing both an A-rank and an S-rank skill at the tutorial phase, it is practically a cheat code. Thanks to Lifelink, his dangerously low health pool is no longer a death sentence. But then, a sudden flash interrupts his thoughts. The Book of Death. This legendary artifact belongs strictly to the Death Sovereign class. His exclusive offhand weapon that cannot be dropped, damaged, or stolen. Currently resting at level 0, its true terrifying attributes remain sealed until he reaches level 1. Upon reaching level 10, its ultimate effects will awaken, a grim grimoire of cosmic laws that only he can decipher. Once his power catches up to its requirements, he will master the exclusive, catastrophic skills of a true sovereign. Since the tome offers no immediate stat boosts, he figures its true awakening lies at level 10. For now, it is time to test out his undead army. He channels his mana to summon a small skeleton once more. But to his absolute shock, 2 skeletal warriors materialize from the void. The system chimes in instantly. The legendary Cataclysm trait has been triggered. Thanks to his sovereign class, every single skill effect is miraculously doubled, and the second and third divine effects are still waiting to be unlocked at higher levels. Even though the 2 bone soldiers look fragile, their eerie presence draws the gaze of a passing player. Witnessing a double summon, the stranger's eyes widen in awe. He assumes our hero must possess at least an A-rank talent. Greed flashing in his eyes, he rushes over to propose a party. Boasting about his own A-rank talent, he claims they could dominate the leveling zones together. But our main character coldly rejects him. He states flatly that the path of the strong is walked alone. Without another word, he turns his back and strides away. The rejected player's pride shatters. He screams insults, mocking him as a fake expert who probably cannot even handle a starter zone chicken. Deep in the forest, the main character spots a squad fighting for their lives against a basic free-range chicken. The party tank is weeping, regretting his class choice against this feathered nightmare. The vanguard screams at him to swallow his tears and just swing his weapon. The squishy mage curses at the heavens, whining that the chicken hits harder than his ultimate spells. Right now, absolute beginners are literally weaker than poultry. One member completely breaks down, shouting that he is abandoning the battlefield to become a humble crafter. If anyone actually enjoys getting pecked to death, they can have this cursed hunting ground to themselves. This infamous level 1 free-range chicken boasts 100 out of 100 health points, with 10 attack power and 5 points in both physical and magical defense. As our hero strolls past with his twin skeleton guards, the desperate party freezes in total disbelief. Seeing his menacing summons, murmurs of intense jealousy spread through the group. They whisper that he must be a chosen one with a heaven-defying talent. Their leader aggressively snaps them out of it, barking at them to stop daydreaming and focus on their feathered raid boss. Our hero calmly assures them he has no interest in stealing their prey. Honestly, unleashing his supreme class on a chicken would be a tragic waste of mana. Suddenly, the underbrush rustles violently. 2 shadowy figures launch themselves from the thicket. Red-eyed rabbits. Level 2 beasts boasting 150 out of 150 health points. Armed with 15 attack power, plus 7 in physical and magic defense. These vicious pests have a terrifying signature move, launching straight for a man's most critical weakness. A hit there would inflict soul-shattering agony. The rabbits barrel forward, crashing into the skeletal vanguard, inflicting a solid 13 to 15 points of damage. A sigh of sheer relief escapes his lips. Thank the heavens he does not have to tank those cursed strikes. With the area clear of prying eyes, it is time for a real stress test. He commands his undead to show no mercy. The skeleton warriors lunge forward, their rusty blades dancing in a flurry of lethal strikes. Within moments, a beast drops dead. Thanks to crossing the level gap, he reaps a sweet 50% bonus, snatching 3 precious experience points. The leveling speed is exhilarating. Reaching level 1 will be an absolute breeze at this pace. Time to check the status window. His own health sits precariously at 1 out of 1, but lifelink changes everything. One skeleton acts as a massive shield with 400 out of 400 health points. The other rests at 393. The doubled attributes of his sovereign class are downright tyrannical. Anchored to 2 massive health pools, he has completely shed his fragile mortal coil. But the golden rule of survival? Never let the world know just how overpowered you truly are. Drawing too much attention right now? Not part of the plan. 4 skeletal warriors should be more than enough to handle things. With his strategy set, White Knight dives straight into the grind. He commands his undead quartet to march forward, ready to slaughter any monsters in their path. It does not take long for the surrounding players to freeze in shock. To their absolute disbelief, White Knight is hoarding experience points while taking a literal stroll through the park. The jealousy in the air is thick enough to cut with a knife. A fellow summoner furiously complains, crying that his own pathetic minions look like absolute garbage compared to these elite skeletons. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Someone gasps, speculating that controlling 4 summons simultaneously absolutely requires an S-rank talent or higher. A curly-haired bystander chimes in with wide eyes. He declares that White Knight's sheer combat power must already rank at the absolute peak of Novice Village, 9,527. Right on cue, the sweet, mechanical chime of the system rings out. White Knight has successfully leveled up. A surge of energy flows through him. His 4 base attributes permanently increase by 1 point each. Better yet, he scores a precious skill point, alongside 15 free attribute points to distribute as he pleases. Hitting level 1 might seem like a small step, but the taste of newfound power brings a wicked smirk to his face. He immediately pulls up his glowing character panel, mind racing with tactical calculations. His summons scale directly with his spirit attribute, making it an absolute priority for his build. However, there is a glaring, fatal flaw. He only has 1 single hit point. Boosting his agility is absolutely crucial to dodge sudden, lethal attacks. After weighing the risks, he locks in his decision. 4 points dumped into agility, and a solid 11 points into spirit, and with his heaven-defying promotion talent, it is time to push his skills to the next realm. He issues the command to the system without hesitation. A blinding light flashes. The promotion is an absolute success. His pitiful F-rank summon small skeleton skill evolves completely, becoming the E-rank summon skeleton. His F-rank basic scorch spell also rides the wave, breaking through to E-rank. But the real showstopper? His A-rank lifelink shatters its mortal limits, evolving into a majestic S-rank divine skill. The upgraded E-rank summon skeleton is a game changer. For just 40 mana and a 3-second cast time, he can call forth a true skeleton fighter every 30 seconds, and its power? Completely tied to his massive spirit attribute. As for Scorch, it is now a weapon of mass destruction. It melts targets with 200% spell power damage over 5 agonizing seconds. It keeps its 30-meter range, but only requires a 2-second cast, a 5-second cooldown, and a measly 20 mana. But the system is not done rewarding him yet. A brand new passive skill materializes on his screen, Death Conscription, an SS rank, unlevelable passive skill. Just reading its effects is enough to make any player tremble in fear. First, his summoning cast times are slashed by a whopping 75%. Second, the cooldowns for bringing out his undead army, also reduced by an absurd 75%. Third, the raw attributes of every summoned creature are multiplied by 100%, and finally, his summoning space capacity is completely doubled. Reading the details, White Knight's eyes gleam with excitement. He mutters to himself that lifelink undeniably lives up to its legendary S-rank status. By passively linking his life force to his undead legion, his effective health pool instantly skyrockets. Sure, his base stats show a pathetic 1 hit point, but his shared life force now acts as a colossal shield of nearly 9,000 hit points. Combine that with Death Conscription, and he now has the power to command an entire platoon of 20 skeletal soldiers. Why bother hiding his strength anymore? It is time to step out of the shadows. He throws his summoning space wide open, ready to unleash absolute chaos and power level like a madman. With his skills completely overhauled, his eyes lock onto his exclusive equipment. It is time for his gear to experience a godly evolution as well. The system chimes with a glorious announcement. The promotion is a resounding success. His exclusive artifact, the Book of Death, morphs and evolves into the terrifying Death Scripture. Bound to his very soul, this legendary item cannot be dropped, damaged, or traded by any means. He can summon or dismiss it with a single fleeting thought. Currently at level 1, it floats dutifully by his side, granting a flat bonus of 15 spell power. But its true, terrifying special effects remain sealed until level 10. A brief flash of disappointment crosses his face. A measly 15 spell power is basically a drop in the ocean right now. His new primary objective? Speedrun his way to level 10. With his goals set in stone, the true massacre begins. He points his finger, sending a tidal wave of skeletal warriors charging into the fray. After all, in the world of the undead, there is strength in numbers. Their next unlucky victim? A vicious, glowing fox monster lurking in the brush. Pushing his limits, White Knight activates his skill to its maximum, attempting to summon all 20 skeletons at once. The synergy is absolutely broken. Thanks to Death Conscription slashing cooldowns, combined with his overpowered Cataclysm trait, each skeletal minion bursts from the ground in a mere 2 seconds. His undead legion ruthlessly hunts down level 3 Razorclaw cat demons. Exploiting a massive 50% level gap bonus, he scoops up 5 experience points with every kill. White Knight watches in pure satisfaction as his experience bar fills at an ungodly pace. In the blink of an eye, the familiar golden light washes over him. The system announces his triumphant breakthrough to level 2. Another permanent boost to his 4 core attributes. Plus, he banks another skill point and 15 precious free attribute points. Without skipping a beat, he orders his bone-chilling army to keep slaughtering. Roughly 30 minutes of relentless bloodshed later, he arrives before a massive, pulsating boulder. Swirling with arcane energy, it is unmistakably a dungeon portal. He has finally reached it. The entrance to the notorious first dungeon of the game, the Mist Forest. Legends say the Mist Forest is overflowing with peerless treasures, but it is equally infamous for acting as a graveyard for overconfident rookies. A massive red system warning flashes before his eyes. asking if he truly wishes to challenge this death trap entirely solo. Solo? White Knight scoffs and hits confirm without a second thought. He might be the only living player entering, but he is bringing an entire undead army to back him up. The holographic interface demands he select a difficulty level. The glowing options materialize in midair: easy, normal, hard, nightmare, and the dreaded hell mode. A sane man would hesitate. White Knight just smirks. He locks in hell difficulty without blinking and fearlessly strides straight into the swirling abyss. The moment he crosses into the hell difficulty mist forest, an eerie chill crawls up his spine. The supernatural fog is so suffocatingly thick, it completely blinds him to the path ahead. Unfazed, he commands his skeletal legion to fan out, ordering them to carve a path through the fog and annihilate any lurking threats. Luckily, his absolute dominion over his summons spans a massive 100-meter radius. The true hunt has officially begun. Without that mental connection, the thick, suffocating fog would have easily swallowed his undead army whole. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms before one of his bone soldiers. The prey has arrived, a mist tree demon. The system panel glows ominously. An elite level 8 nightmare, boasting a full 3,600 out of 3,600 health points, 74 attack power, 60 physical defense, 40 magic defense, and the deadly entangle skill. White Knight's eyes blaze with thrilling anticipation. Finally, a worthy sacrifice. At his mental command, his undead legion surges forward like a white tide, but the demonic tree retaliates instantly by casting entangle. Vicious, thick vines erupt from the earth, violently crushing a skeleton and snapping its bony arms like dry twigs. The raw, devastating attack power of an elite monster is truly terrifying. Yet, single target strength means absolutely nothing against the sheer, overwhelming numbers of his relentless horde. He mercilessly directs his entire vanguard to swarm the towering beast. Bone blades flash, tearing through thick bark until the system bell finally chimes. Experience floods his body. Thanks to the massive 50% level gap multiplier, he absorbs a glorious plus 60 experience points from the slaughtered level 8 elite. A standard Mist Forest dungeon is merely level 5, but the Hell difficulty modifier twists the rules entirely. It raises monster levels by 3, mutating every single creature into a terrifying elite horror. The sheer amount of experience points is absolute perfection. But before he can even celebrate, a chilling rustle echoes right behind his neck. A massive shadow plummets from the canopy. He violently throws himself backward, narrowly escaping the lethal drop of a mystery python. The system rings out again. Another level 8 elite, packing a full 3,000 out of 3,000 health, an overwhelming 108 attack, 52 physical defense, 30 magic defense, and the fatal strangle ability. These serpentine nightmares are infamous for wrapping up their prey and crushing their bones to dust. But White Knight refuses to be a victim. He raises his staff, unleashing a roaring burst of ethereal blue flames. The ghostly fire scorches the beast, inflicting 98 and 101 damage back-to-back. His loyal skeletons immediately capitalize on the opening, chopping the massive snake into bloody pieces. The triumphant sound of the system echoes once more, confirming the brutal slaughter of the level 8 elite mystery python. Another massive surge of power washes over him, granting that sweet 50% level gap bonus and plus 60 more experience points. Despite possessing a monstrous spirit attribute that triples any ordinary necromancer, his personal spells still pale in comparison to the sheer butchery of his relentless undead army. A glowing orb drops from the corpse. Loot! It is a level 5 tree python belt, a black iron-grade treasure boasting a perfect durability of 30 out of 30, granting plus 9 armor and a 2-point boost to constitution. The design is fierce, resembling an actual coiled python clinging tightly to the wearer's waist. But White Knight can only let out a heavy sigh of disappointment. Leather armor is completely useless for a spellcaster like him. Still, in this awakened world, good gear means heavy pockets, so he tosses it into his inventory to sell later. Shaking off the minor setback, he commands his skeletal vanguard forward, marching deeper into the suffocating mist. Dozens of glowing red eyes pierce through the fog. To anyone else it is a death trap, but to White Knight, it is a glorious harvest. His undead forces form a perfect battle formation, violently clashing against demons and pythons simultaneously. The forest descends into a symphony of organized, bloody chaos. Amidst the slaughter, a golden pillar of light engulfs him. The system announces he has broken through to level 5. A surge of divine energy flows through his veins. His 4 core attributes each rise by plus 1 point, accompanied by a precious plus 1 skill point and a staggering plus 15 free attribute points to distribute. With another level secured, the bloody grind pays off spectacularly, showering the forest floor with a mountain of glowing loot. He scoops up piles of black iron gear. A wooden wand, a venomous snake fang short dagger, and even more tree python leather armor pieces fill his storage. Better yet, he loots 2 E-rank skill manuals, Entangle and Strangle. The wooden wand is a decent temporary upgrade, but the rest of the arsenal is practically useless for his specific build. He calculates the profit, deciding to upgrade them later and make an absolute fortune on the market. Pulling up his glowing status panel, he admires his terrifying progress as a level 5 Necromancer. The numbers are monstrous: 51 agility, a jaw-dropping 108 spirit, completely maxed out mana at 6,480 out of 6,480, and a devastating 409 spell power, though his health sits at a terrifying 1 out of 1 maximum points. His exclusive forbidden trait, Promotion, glows menacingly on the screen. His class arsenal is locked and loaded: E-rank Summon Skeleton, E-rank Scorch, the life-saving S-rank Life Sharing, and the absolute game-changer, double S-rank Death Conscription. His undead army currently holds 10 out of 20 possible summon slots, and he lightly grips his newly acquired wooden wand. Yet, the heaviest burden remains. His class-exclusive relic, the Death Scripture, pulses with dark energy, constantly reminding him of his cursed fate. His remaining lifespan is still ticking down to less than 1 single year. The wand stats are severely lacking in firepower for what is to come, so he will definitely need a legendary weapon soon. But as he sighs, a dark notification catches his eye. The ancient pages of his Death Scripture are trembling. It leveled up. This soul-bound, class-exclusive relic defies all system rules. It can never be dropped, destroyed, or traded away. The newly awakened base attributes are absolutely insane. It grants an instant plus 75 to spell power, a massive 25-point boost to all core attributes, and a glorious plus 100% damage against any undead creature. Even his summoned skeletons radiate with this unholy aura, sharing the massive power spike. And the best part? Entirely new, devastating special effects will unlock once this dark tome reaches level 10. The system classifies this terrifying grimoire as a book of absolute rules. Its forbidden text appears as swirling shadows, readable only by his eyes. By fulfilling its dark conditions, he will unlock the mythical skills of a true death sovereign. A wicked grin spreads across White Knight's face as he basks in this god-tier reward. He rallies his skeletal legion, their empty eye sockets burning with renewed, ghostly flames. Empowered by his massive equipment and stat upgrades, he knows in his bones that he is ready to hunt the boss. Without a second of hesitation, the Necromancer and his army of death plunge straight into the darkest heart of the dungeon. The fog suddenly clears, revealing a suffocating, terrifying pressure. A silver-grade boss blocks their path, flanked by 2 hulking, reinforced elite bodyguards. Sweat drops down White Knight's face. A silver-grade boss in a beginner zone? The Hell difficulty modifier truly lives up to its ruthless reputation. Towering before them is the Mist Tree Python King, a level 8, silver-grade nightmare boasting a catastrophic 88,000 out of 88,000 health. It wields an absurd 327 attack, 136 physical defense, and 98 magic defense. It commands a lethal arsenal of skills: Strangle, Devour, Venom Spray, and the devastating Earthshaker. Beside it, 2 massive Mist Tree Python guards hiss violently, radiating the aura of level 8 reinforced elites. Just the guards alone possess an apocalyptic 8,350 health and 198 attack power. The ultimate battle for survival has officially begun. 72 physical defense, 60 magic defense, and the deadly Strangle skill. White Knight narrowed his eyes, analyzing the boss's fearsome stats. The monstrous serpent boasted over 80,000 health points alone, flanked by 2 elite guards. For a fleeting second, doubt crept in: could his undead legion actually conquer this beast? But hesitation meant death in this world. With a cold glint in his eye, he commanded his skeletal warriors to initiate the slaughter. The undead vanguard surged forward only for the Mist Tree Python King to unhinge its massive jaws, swallowing a skeleton whole in one terrifying gulp. A chill ran down White Knight's spine as he witnessed the creature's overwhelming attack power. But raw strength meant nothing against the relentless tide of his skeleton sea tactic. 2 more skeletal soldiers materialized from the shadows. With a single commanding gesture, he ordered his undead army to tear the monster to shreds. The skeletal swarm completely overwhelmed the Python guards in seconds. A system notification chimed each kill, granting a massive 50% level gap bonus, netting him 180 experience points. With the annoying lackeys out of the way, he directed his legion of bone warriors to focus all their wrath entirely on the Python King. Blades of bone rained down mercilessly upon the serpent's head, but the barrage of strikes only fueled the boss's blazing fury. White Knight winced at his own pitiful damage numbers popping up above the beast. Compared to his overpowered summons, his personal attack power was downright embarrassing. Enraged, the Python King locked its deadly gaze onto the undead horde. In a flash of scales, it devoured another warrior, instantly shattering it to dust. The colossal beast thrashed its titanic body, obliterating several skeletons in a shockwave of destruction. Suddenly, White Knight's danger sense screamed. The boss was charging up its ultimate attack. Without warning, the Python King unleashed a devastating tidal wave of toxic green mist. White Knight gasped in shock. He completely underestimated the monster's intelligence. It was targeting the summoner directly. The blinding venomous cloud swallowed him whole, but instead of dodging, White Knight braced himself and tanked the deadly strike head-on. Thanks to his broken life-sharing ability, his combined health pool was a monstrous 100,000 points. To him, this so-called lethal damage was nothing but a light scratch. Now it was his turn to hunt. Blazing blue flames ignited in his palms as he charged into the fray, spamming his scorch spell while his undead legion hacked away from every angle. Unable to withstand the relentless, suffocating assault, the titanic serpent let out one final screech before crashing heavily to the earth. Ding! The golden system interface flashed, announcing his absolute victory over the level 8 silver grade boss, the Mist Tree Python King. Another massive 50% experience boost cascaded down, rewarding him with a staggering 14,400 experience points. White Knight smirked, thoroughly satisfied with his flawless execution. Suddenly, a global server notification erupted. The system officially crowned him the very first player in Novice Village number 9527 to ever solo kill a boss. A shower of golden light blessed him, dropping one highly coveted basic life soul stone and a shiny gold coin directly into his inventory. But the crazy rewards did not stop there. A second glorious notification declared him the absolute first to solo a silver grade boss in Novice Village number 9527. This legendary achievement instantly multiplied his spoils, raining down 5 more basic life soul stones and 5 dazzling gold coins. Instantly, the glowing red text of a server-wide announcement scrolled across the skies of Novice Village, number 9527. The heavens themselves proclaimed White Knight's legendary feat, the lone warrior who slaughtered a silver-grade boss without any party support. The system mockingly encouraged the struggling masses to learn from his godly example to earn their own epic rewards. The entire player base was completely dumbfounded. The global chat exploded into absolute chaos. Everyone was desperately trying to uncover White Knight's identity, wondering what kind of heaven-defying talent he had awakened. The consensus was unanimous: his hidden talent had to be an S rank, or maybe even a mythical SSS rank. How else could anyone possibly solo a silver-grade nightmare in the early game? Jealousy ran rampant. One furious player cursed the massive power gap, while another bitterly complained that this terrifying Myriad Worlds game was completely unbalanced. While they were fighting for their lives against weak little slimes, this absolute monster of a player was out there farming terrifying bosses like they were nothing. Another transmigrator let out a soul-crushing sigh. After being dragged into this magical world, they never imagined they were destined to be mere cannon fodder. Deep in another hunting zone, a beautiful female player's eyes widened. She had just realized that soloing a boss would trigger such a glorious server-wide announcement. She clicked her tongue in annoyance. If she had known about the hidden fame system, she would have let her carry, Maple Leaf, finish off their black iron-grade boss entirely on his own. A confident voice echoed from beside her, dismissing the missed opportunity since the future held endless possibilities. The speaker was none other than the elite player, Maple Leaf Shakao. With a serious expression, he admitted a bitter truth. This White Knight was on a completely different level. A silver-grade boss was still a death sentence for him at his current stage. The wealthy young miss, known as Wealthy World, frowned in disbelief. Maple Leaf had already awakened a god-tier S-rank talent. How could this mysterious White Knight possibly look down on them from an even higher peak? Her heart raced with sudden ambition. Could it be that White Knight secretly possessed a legendary SS-rank talent? Maple Leaf nodded gravely, acknowledging the terrifying possibility. Sensing an opportunity, their heavy tank, Awe, quickly suggested recruiting this monstrous lone wolf into their elite party. Cotton Candy, a petite but brilliant mage, trembled at the sheer power scaling of an SS rank ability. She nervously wondered if a supreme existence like him would even bother looking their way. But Wealthy World just flipped her hair with absolute arrogance. She would throw the bait regardless after all. No man in existence had ever dared to reject her VIP invitations. Back in the boss room, White Knight's system interface was practically exploding. A massive tsunami of friend requests threatened to crash his screen. Bewildered by the sudden swarm of leeches and fanboys, he didn't even blink. He ruthlessly hit the reject all button. A king has no time for worthless pleasantries. Instead, his focus shifted to the true prize. He materialized the basic Life Soul Stone, a mystical artifact that literally added 30 days of pure lifespan directly to the user's soul. But the Myriad Worlds system was cruel. Death meant losing 10% of that precious lifespan, with a harsh penalty of at least 3 days. White Knight's eyes gleamed with awe items that manipulated the very concept of mortality actually existed here. He decided to push those mysterious stones to their absolute limit. Upon promotion, a radiant glow pulsed in his palm, revealing an intermediate life soul stone. This divine artifact was no ordinary loot. Upon absorption, it directly injected a staggering 120 days into his lifespan. The penalty for death? A mere tenth of that borrowed time, with a minimum toll of 12 days. A victorious smirk crossed his face, thrilled that the risky gamble had paid off. Just 6 of these intermediate stones would grant him nearly 2 whole years of extra life, stealing time itself from the heavens. The feeling was intoxicatingly addictive. A burning hunger awakened within him to harvest even more of these precious soul stones. He tossed aside the 2 newly dropped skill books, deeming them absolute trash for his legendary path. Sifting through the remaining loot, only a sinister-looking poison ring caught his eye. Without hesitation, he channeled his power to promote it. The metal twisted and evolved into the fearsome, venomous ring. This glorious gold-grade artifact boasted perfect durability at 100/100. It supercharged his stats with plus 30 spell power, plus 10 agility, and plus 10 spirit. Better yet, every magical strike now harbored a deadly curse. It had a chance to inflict 150 poison damage, striking with lethal precision up to once every 10 seconds. A wicked smile formed on his lips. The synergy of dark magic and venom was absolutely flawless. If his initial blast did not shatter their bones, the toxic rot certainly would. But his momentary joy faded as he surveyed the battlefield. A mountain of shattered bones lay before him, the heavy cost of fighting a mere beginner boss. A harsh truth crashed down upon him. His current undead army was painfully pathetic. They simply lacked the overwhelming power needed for true survival. With his newly acquired fortune of gold coins, a daring thought crossed his mind. It was time to push his summoning magic beyond its mortal limits. He initiated the Supreme Upgrade. The system projected 3 paths of evolution: promote at Tier 1, sublimate at Tier 2, or cataclysm at Tier 3. His eyes locked onto the second option, and without a shred of doubt, he chose sublimate. The system chimed with a harsh warning. Overriding the foundation and forcing a sublimation would burn a massive hole in his pocket, costing an outrageous 5 gold coins. The price stung his very soul, but wealth could always be plundered later. Gritting his teeth, he confirmed the ritual and let the sublimation begin. A brilliant light consumed his grimoire. The system's divine voice echoed in his mind, announcing that his pathetic F-rank skill, Summon Small Skeleton, had shattered its restraints. It was reborn as the formidable D-rank skill, Summon Skeleton Soldier. This level 6 mastery finally gave him tactical control, allowing him to call forth specialized skeleton warriors or deadly skeleton archers from the abyss. Channeling this dark magic required a 3-second cast time, a 30-second cooldown, and a heavy toll of 200 mana per summon. But the true terror lay in its scaling potential. These undead soldiers would multiply in strength based on his own spirit attribute. His eyes gleamed with absolute delight at the prospect of the archer class. Suddenly, those 5 gold coins felt like the steal of the century. Eager to witness his new legion, he immediately chanted the incantation and tore open a rift. A bone-chilling aura flooded the forest. The skeleton archer emerged with terrifying stats: 637 points across strength, constitution, and agility. Its vitality skyrocketed to 6,370 health points, fortified by 319 physical defense. But the real nightmare was its combat art, Double Shot. At rank E level 6, it could unleash 2 armor-piercing arrows in the blink of an eye, ensuring a devastating double impact. Each phantom shaft tore through the air, dealing 90% physical damage to anything in its path, operating on a mere 30-second cooldown. Thanks to the sublime archer class conversion, its agility stat had mutated into an absolute blur of lethal speed. Beside it stood the colossal skeleton warrior. It mirrored those base stats, but wielded a monstrous 956 attack power, perfectly balanced with 319 physical defense. Its mastery was the brutal heavy strike skill. At rank E level 6, this vanguard could swing its weapon with earth-shattering force. It unleashed a devastating 175% physical damage payload, ready to crush skulls every 30 seconds. Bound to the warrior class, its brute strength had exponentially multiplied. A dark chuckle escaped his lips. Finally, his undead legion had ascended from cannon fodder to true killing machines. Overflowing with dark satisfaction, he commanded his newfound vanguard to push deeper into the unknown shadows of the realm. Like phantoms, they scattered into the dense, haunting woods. Before long, a terrifying presence emerged from the underbrush. An elite rank level 8 goblin had stepped right into their trap. This monstrosity boasted a full 2,800 health points. It carried 96 attack, 58 physical defense, 45 magic defense, and the deadly throw skill, but he did not flinch. He instantly commanded his snipers to lock on and annihilate the beast. Whoosh! A storm of bone arrows ripped through the air, burying themselves directly into the goblin's skull. The elite monster collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut, dead in an instant. The system sang its sweet melody of victory. White Knight bathed in a glorious 50% experience boost, easily raking in a massive plus 60 experience points from a single strike. His farming efficiency had just broken through the heavens. The beginner woods were nothing but child's play now. To feed his growing power, he needed to march straight into higher-level hunting grounds. Meanwhile, the chaotic safe zone of the beginner village was buzzing. Desperate players were screaming over each other, scrambling to form raiding parties and build alliances. Suddenly, a towering figure stepped into the spotlight, commanding the room's attention. With arrogant confidence, the man proclaimed the dawn of a new empire. He was establishing the Hegemony Guild. He magnanimously offered the surrounding peasants a chance to serve under his banner in the brutal Myriad Worlds. But the veteran gamers sneered. Disgust and offense immediately rippled through the crowd. Who did this? Nobody think he was. He had barely spawned into the tutorial, yet he was already barking orders and demanding loyalty like some legendary ranker. Ignoring their hostile glares, the man crossed his arms and dropped a bombshell. He casually revealed that he was blessed with a supreme S-rank talent, the Born Leader. The crowd fell dead silent. This heaven-defying talent completely bypassed the system's impossible gold requirements, allowing him to forge a guild absolutely for free. But the real shockwave came next. Every member under his flag would be blessed with a massive 20% boost to experience, monster drops, and raw attack power. And as their legion conquered more territory, those god-tier buffs would only multiply. The atmosphere instantly shifted from mockery to absolute greed. A 20% universal steroid? This S-rank ability was a one-way ticket to dominating the leaderboards. Like starving wolves, players violently shoved each other, begging to be recruited. The guildmaster smirked, telling the desperate mob to line up one by one. But just as his reign was beginning, the very sky of the game shattered with a dazzling server-wide golden broadcast. The sender's name carried the weight of infinite gold. It was none other than Wealthy World, and this mega-premium shout-out was entirely directed at a single player, the White Knight. Her divine message echoed across all channels. She publicly demanded that he accept her pending friend request immediately, hinting at a business proposition that could shake the very foundations of the game. The entire beginner village stared at the sky in absolute disbelief. Envy exploded like a volcano as thousands of players began whining in the world chat, wondering who this mysterious White Knight was to capture the attention of a goddess of wealth. One exhausted player cursed his brutal luck. He had risked his life slaughtering countless monsters, yet his pockets held less than 100 measly copper coins. Meanwhile, some absolute madman had just burned 10 entire gold coins simply to broadcast a single message. The whole server was buzzing. Just who was this mysterious tycoon? In these brutal early stages of the game, dropping 10 gold for a server-wide announcement was an absolutely unfathomable display of wealth. Shockwaves of disbelief rippled through the beginner village. Players whispered frantically among themselves, questioning if the user named Wealthy World was actually a billionaire in disguise. Even the region's top guildmaster was shaken to his core. How could anyone amass such a fortune so quickly? And more importantly, who was this White Knight she was desperately searching for? The sheer mystery surrounding the name made everyone desperate to witness his true strength. Deep in the hunting grounds, White Knight himself finally saw the blinding broadcast. Burning 10 gold just to grab his attention? This girl was undeniably swimming in cash. Intrigued by her bottomless pockets, he accepted the friend request. The moment the connection was made, Wealthy World wasted zero time. She aggressively extended an invitation to join her elite party. Her terms were absolutely heaven-defying. She offered to bankroll all his gear and skill books, throwing in an upfront signing bonus of 100 gold coins. Such insane generosity was simply unheard of. White Knight narrowed his eyes in suspicion. Every player had only just stepped out of the novice village. How on earth did she conquer the economy so flawlessly? He flatly demanded a reason to trust her ridiculous claims. Her response was dangerously arrogant. To her, money was nothing more than a meaningless string of numbers. As long as he bound himself to her team with a contract, an endless ocean of wealth would be placed right at his fingertips. To crush his remaining doubts, she proudly revealed her SSS rank-exclusive talent, the God of Wealth. This god-tier ability possessed 3 game-breaking effects. First was the money tree. Once a day, she could summon a divine tree, dropping anywhere from 1 to 999 gold coins, with a hidden chance to yield ultra-rare treasures. The second effect, Wealth Rolls In, was a passive gold mine. It forcibly multiplied her total carried currency by 1% every single day. Finally, income only, no outgo, an absolute safe zone for her assets, guaranteeing she would never drop a single coin or item upon death. White Knight took a sharp breath. This god of wealth talent wasn't just overpowered, it was a completely heaven-defying bug in the system. With this terrifying SSS rank skill, amassing a fortune was as effortless as breathing. She was essentially a walking gold printing press. However, chaining himself to a party sounded utterly exhausting. Worse, traveling with others would inevitably expose his own devastating dark secrets. He coldly brushed the temptation aside. During these crucial early stages, the path of a solo player was far more secure. He bluntly replied that a lone wolf needed no pack. Wealthy World's jaw dropped in sheer indignation. How dare this random player reject an ocean of gold? Her party member, Maple Leaf Xiao, noticed her dark expression. Did the mysterious expert actually refuse? Gritting her teeth, she confirmed that White Knight insisted on walking a solitary path. Awe scoffed in disbelief, suggesting they leave the arrogant fool behind. They were more than capable of crushing the monster hordes with their own strength. Cotton Candy nervously chimed in. While survival was possible, lacking top-tier equipment would severely cripple their leveling speed in this brutal world. Suddenly, Wealthy World's message interface flashed. White Knight hadn't blocked her. Instead, the lone wolf was proposing a high-stakes trade. She eagerly demanded the details. He casually revealed a stash of unused equipment and precious skill books, offering to sell them to her struggling party. Her eyes practically gleamed with gold coins. She immediately asked for his price, boldly declaring her intention to sweep his entire inventory. White Knight smirked at his screen. He warned her that the true value of his loot would shatter her wildest imagination. He promised to ping her the moment his current slaughter was complete. A confident smile returned to her face. She agreed to wait, turning to Maple Leaf with a promise that a full set of top-tier gear was already in the bag. Away pumped his fist in sheer excitement. Securing overpowered gear now meant their leveling efficiency was about to absolutely skyrocket. Just moments later, a menacing shadow blocked their path. The earth trembled beneath the hooves of a terrifying wild boar leader. A level 5 bronze-grade boss. It boasted an intimidating 23,800 health points. With 205 attack power, 81 physical defense, 62 magic defense, and nightmare-inducing skills like Tear, Barbaric Charge, and Wild Trample, it was a genuine monster. Wealthy World locked eyes with Maple Leaf. Did he possess the raw skill to conquer this beast alone? With a fearless grin, he assured her that victory was already his. Taking command, she ordered the entire party to funnel their life recovery potions directly into Maple Leaf's inventory. Then, she officially expelled him from the group. Awe was deployed to secure the perimeter. No other players could be allowed to interfere. Their ambition was crystal clear. They were going to hijack the global system announcement for a solo boss kill. With the stage set, Maple Leaf charged into the fray. The boar leader roared, launching a devastating strike that instantly deleted 986 health points. Dancing on the edge of death, Maple Leaf ghosted behind the massive beast and unleashed his counterattack. But the boss viciously whipped its spiked back around to crush him. He narrowly dodged the fatal blow, a cocky smirk on his face. The beast had overwhelming power, but its speed was nothing compared to his reflexes. Watching from the sidelines, Wealthy World nodded in approval. Maple Leaf's combat mechanics were flawless. Soloing this bronze boss was simply a matter of time. But deep within the Forbidden Zones, White Knight was operating on an entirely different level. He mercilessly executed a level 8 silver-grade boss, the Goblin Leader, raking in a massive 50% bonus. A staggering plus 14,400 experience points flooded his system. Commanding an entire army of loyal minions made these absolute massacres feel like a walk in the park. His legion crushed everything in their path. He casually strolled through the deadly mist forest without facing a single shred of resistance. A golden light erupted around his body. The system chimed, announcing his ascent to level 6. He gained plus 1 point to all 4 attributes, alongside a glorious plus 15 free attribute points to spend as he pleased. His only true grievance? The absolute chore of scooping up mountains of dropped loot. He inspected a rare reinforced bone shield, but scoffed. With his heaven-defying life diversion talent, defensive skills were completely obsolete. He then pulled out a mist cloak. While its aggro-reducing effect was tactically brilliant, he grimaced at its horrific design. Powerful or not, there was absolutely no way he was wearing something that ugly. A level 5 artifact, and not just any gear, but a magnificent gold-grade treasure. Its stats were flawless. A perfect 100 out of 100 durability, granting 28 physical defense and 20 magic defense. On top of that, it boosted Constitution and Spirit by 10 points each. The best part? Slipping it on masked his presence like a shadow, drastically cutting down monster aggro. But that wasn't all. A gleaming emblem soon caught his eye, radiating immense power. Another level 5 gold-grade masterpiece, sitting at a pristine 100 out of 100 durability. This beauty was a game-changer. It permanently boosted health by 200 and mana by a massive 400 points. Even better, it bumped his spell critical chance by a solid 5%. The passive skill was the real prize. Every critical hit triggered a 10-second buff, surging his spirit by 20 points. It couldn't stack, but he still equipped it in a heartbeat. Suddenly, the eerie clatter of bones broke the silence. One of his skeleton warriors staggered toward him, its health bar dangerously low and its frame heavily battered. He frowned. How did a simple scout trigger the appearance of the Sovereign's domain? Before he could connect the dots, the system interface flashed a crimson warning. The sheer size of his undead army had awakened the Goblin King's darkest, long-buried nightmares. A hidden plot had just been unlocked. Consumed by ancient trauma, the Goblin King descended into pure madness. The The dark aura enveloping him skyrocketed all his attributes by a terrifying 50%. A magical barrier slammed shut behind him. The mist forest exit was completely sealed. Survival meant only one thing now. The Goblin King had to die. But the system wasn't done playing games. To conquer this hidden scenario, he had exactly 2 minutes to execute the monstrous ruler. Unfazed by the ticking clock, White Knight immediately raised more undead from the shadows. Across the battlefield, the Goblin King unleashed a deafening roar, furious at this domain invasion. It bellowed a bloody promise to grind his filthy bones into dust. Under the madness state, Goblin King Regu was a completely different beast, his stats unnaturally amplified by 50%. Analyzing the level 8 gold grade boss revealed terrifying numbers. 286,218 health points remaining, out of a colossal 327,000 maximum. His attack power sat at a deadly 843, backed by 312 physical and 270 magic defense. The boss's skill arsenal was a nightmare. Thunderstrike, Trample, and Heroic Leap for heavy damage, plus Summon Goblin Warrior and the dreaded Berserk mode. The agonizing ghosts of Regu's past had completely shattered his sanity, turning him into an unstoppable engine of destruction. A chilling system note followed. Even if White Knight died and respawned, Regu's aggro was permanently locked. The monster would hunt him to the ends of the server. 2 minutes to burn through a 300,000 health pool? White Knight's eyes narrowed. This DPS check was going to be brutally tight. The Sovereign's vitality was monstrous, but the Necromancer held a trump card that no amount of health could counter. Even a king could drown in an ocean of undead. Victory was absolutely within his grasp. With a ground-shaking stomp, the Goblin King hurled himself at the legion of rotting warriors. It snarled with absolute disgust, claiming the stench of death made its stomach turn. As the first clash echoed, White Knight couldn't help but acknowledge the devastating impact of the boss's strikes. Any ordinary level 5 player would have been wiped out in a single breath, but unfortunately for this corrupted king, he had crossed paths with a true anomaly. The monstrous ruler growled in utter frustration, realizing the Necromancer was maneuvering through the shadows to strike from the blind spots. From the backlines, the skeleton archers unleashed a relentless storm of arrows, chipping away at the massive health bar. Unable to ignore the stinging damage, the Goblin King suddenly shifted its deadly focus toward the snipers. A cold smile touched White Knight's lips. The boss had just walked right into his trap. Roaring to the heavens, the Sovereign tore open a spatial rift, commanding its elite vanguard to crush the undead invaders. A tide of goblin warriors flooded out from the glowing portal. Just like their liege, the summoned reinforcements were gripped by the madness buff, violently spiking their stats by 50%. These weren't mere fodder. Each warrior boasted a full 13,500 health points, hitting with 279 attack power. Armed with a powerful strike skill and decent dual defenses, they were walking tanks. White Knight's eyes flickered with surprise. The battlefield had just turned into a chaotic meat grinder. Across the blood-stained ground, the Goblin King locked eyes with the Necromancer, his fury reaching an absolute boiling point. This human had slaughtered his kin across the mist forest, and the vengeful king was determined to exact a bloody toll. There would be no escape. With a world-shaking battle cry, the Sovereign unleashed his army, ordering them to grind the Necromancer and his summons into cosmic dust. Channeling explosive aura, the Goblin King violently smashed its weapon into the earth. A devastating shockwave ripped through the battlefield. Relying on pure instinct, White Knight perfectly dodged the epicenter. Still, the residual impact grazed him, and he gritted his teeth against the stinging pain. Thank the heavens for the damage-sharing link with his summons. The lethal blow was mitigated into a minor scratch. Without skipping a beat, he conjured fresh reinforcements and directed them to intercept the charging vanguard. The skeletal legion surged forward like a tide of death, their rusted blades ruthlessly carving through the frenzied goblin ranks. "Fire!" he mentally commanded, and a deadly volley of bone arrows darkened the sky. The Goblin King watched in absolute despair as his elite kin were effortlessly slaughtered. But a sovereign's pride does not shatter so easily. Roaring that it would never be chained again, Goblin King Regu crossed the absolute limit. The dreaded Berserk state had been triggered. Crimson aura exploded around the boss. His attack power and attack speed simultaneously skyrocketed by an insane 50%. The trade-off? His physical and magic defenses plummeted by half. Watching this desperate final stand, White Knight just scoffed, casually writing off the mighty boss as an absolute amateur. Right at that tense moment, a server-wide announcement echoed through the skies. A player named Maple Leaf Xiao had just claimed the glorious first solo kill on a bronze-grade boss. The prestigious first kill title had been snatched away, but White Knight didn't even blink. World announcements were nothing compared to actual power. Why cry over a bronze title when a gold-grade mountain of loot was standing right in front of him? With a swift gesture, he ordered his entire undead armada to swarm the crippled king. The infinite sea of bone and rusted steel crashed over the Sovereign. Overwhelmed and outmatched, the tyrannical Goblin King finally collapsed into the dirt. The sweet sound of the system chime rang out. He had successfully eliminated the level 8 gold grade boss, Goblin King Regu. The reward? A massive 50% experience bonus, flooding his level bar with a staggering 43,200 experience points. A golden light bathed him as he broke through to level 7. Quote, the system rewarded his triumph with +1 to all 4 attributes, +1 precious skill point, and a massive +15 free attribute points. Novice Village 9527 had just witnessed history. He had become the undisputed first player to solo kill a gold-grade boss. The system generously rewarded his monumental achievement, dropping 12 basic life soul stones and 12 shiny gold coins into his inventory. But wait, where was the rest of the loot? He scoured the area, but the boss's corpse dropped absolutely nothing else. Meanwhile, miles away, an arrogant warrior clad in heavy armor had just claimed a priceless treasure that permanently increased his lifespan. His sycophantic guildmates instantly swarmed him with praise, crowning him the absolute #1 expert of Novice Village 9527. But their premature celebration was abruptly cut short. A massive system notification suddenly flashed across the sky. Player Maple Leaf Xiao had secured the server's first solo kill against a bronze-grade boss. The armored man's lackeys scoffed, claiming Maple Leaf must have just gotten incredibly lucky. Fueled by foolish pride, the guild leader arrogantly vowed to hunt down a gold-grade boss himself to prove who the real king of the village was. But the system wasn't done yet. Another deafening chime echoed through the world. The server-wide broadcast shattered their reality. Player White Knight had single-handedly slaughtered a gold-grade boss. The armored guild leader's face twisted in pure disbelief. Had this unknown player awakened a legendary SSS-rank talent? Deep within the forest, even the highly skilled Maple Leaf Xiao couldn't hide his awe, muttering that White Knight was an absolute monster. His companion, Wealthy World, calmly patted his shoulder to break the tension. The Myriad Worlds game had only just opened its doors, meaning there was still plenty of time to close the power gap. Shaking off the shock, Maple Leaf Xiao rallied his party to conquer the server's first dungeon. Back at the blood-soaked battlefield, the notifications kept rolling in for White Knight. He had annihilated Goblin King Reggie in under 2 minutes. This unprecedented lightning-fast execution had forcefully awakened a hidden plotline, Reggie's Nightmare. The very air grew suffocatingly heavy as the Mist Forest dungeon difficulty instantly spiked, mutating into disaster grade, a terrifying realm far beyond even hell difficulty. A pitch-black, suffocating fog suddenly violently erupted from the fallen Goblin King's maw. White Knight tightened his grip on his weapon, his instinct screaming that something was terribly wrong. The swirling mist forcibly projected haunting illusions into his mind. He witnessed peaceful goblin tribes living in harmony, only to be dragged into a brutal, unforgiving tragedy. They were chained like beasts and mercilessly burned to ash in roaring flames. But then, the vision revealed a horrifying truth about one of his own summoned skeletons. His loyal, undead minion had actually been one of these tortured goblins in its past life. Before he could fully process this dark lore, a chilling anomaly occurred. The Goblin King's mangled corpse erupted in a blinding, unholy light. Flesh melted away as it resurrected into the terrifying skeleton king, Reggie. Fueled by pure madness, every single one of its attributes surged by a massive 50%. It violently broke through its limits, ascending to level 10 and mutating into a legendary dark gold-grade boss. The system scanned its apocalyptic stats. 1,800,000 health points, 4,215 attack power, 780 physical defense, and 675 magic defense. Its arsenal of death was absolutely overwhelming. It wielded Summon Skeleton Warrior, Summon Skeleton Archer, and Summon Skeleton Mage, all while radiating the suffocating aura of the dead. Add Thunder Heavy Strike, Trample of the Dead, Leap of the Dead, Berserk, and Death Aura Surround to the mix. The system lore confirmed his worst fears. This abomination was the crowning masterpiece of ancient necromancers. Trapped in his bone cage, Skeleton King Reggie realized the cruelest irony of all. Even after fighting so hard, he could never escape the cursed fate of becoming the undead. With a bone-chilling, sorrowful roar, he commanded the souls of his fallen brethren to rise and fight for him once more. Ethereal spirits tore out of the earth, fusing violently to forge his massive, spectral blade. White Knight stared down the towering behemoth. How could a god-tier calamity like this exist in a mere novice village? The Skeleton King thrust his blade upward, calling down jagged lightning from the heavens. And from the deepest shadows, his elite undead army materialized. The vanguard was led by a terrifying level 10, Skeleton Warrior, boasting 60,000 health points and 780 attack power. Add 264 physical defense, 216 magic defense, and a brutal level 10 heavy strike skill. This wasn't a mere mob. Bathed in the boss's aura of the dead, this heroic warrior's stats instantly skyrocketed by another 20%. Next came a level 10 Skeleton Mage, packing 24,000 health points and a devastating 840 spell power. With 100 physical and 240 magic defense, it wielded an infernal level 10 fireball skill. Like the warrior, this powerful spellcaster was supercharged by the aura of the dead, amplifying its destructive potential by an additional 20%. Finally, a level 10 skeleton archer stepped from the mist, wielding 36,000 health points of pure durability. It brought 624 attack power to the field, backed by 160 physical and 120 magic defense. Its bow was strung with a lethal level 10 double-shot skill. Also buffed by 20% from the death aura, this marksman was deadly accurate. The combined combat pressure of just 6 enemy summons was terrifyingly close to overpowering White Knight's entire army of 20 minions. The message from the Skeleton King was crystal clear. He intended to slaughter them all and forcefully draft their souls into his eternal undead legion. A heavy sense of dread washed over White Knight. The enemy's raw firepower was absolute cheat level. For the first time, he stared into the abyss, completely clueless on how he was supposed to survive this slaughter. Just as despair began to creep in, the system flashed a blood-red warning across his retina. The hidden plot, Reggie's nightmare, was now fully active, and the novice village death protection had been violently shattered. The penalty for dying here? A permanent loss of 10% of his real-world lifespan, with a devastating minimum penalty of 10 years. Hearing that practically made his heart stop beating. Even if he forcefully absorbed every single life soulstone in his inventory, it wouldn't even dent the cost of one single death. A chilling realization froze his blood. His legendary journey in the Myriad Worlds might actually meet a tragic end right here in this accursed forest. Giving him no time to breathe, Skeleton King Reggie brought down a catastrophic thunder-heavy strike. The earth shattered as several of White Knight's minions were instantly pulverized to dust. The devastating shockwave sent White Knight flying. Spitting blood and gritting his teeth, his eyes burned with fierce defiance. "All archers," he roared. "Aim at those undead scumbags and focus your fire." White Knight gritted his teeth. With his current mana reserves, his absolute limit was a mere 20 skeleton warriors. That wasn't even close to enough. The enemy's defenses were practically an iron wall. He had to push his skill to the next tier. Playing it safe was no longer an option. It was time to gamble with his very existence. First, he needed to consume the stones. Only then would he discover the true lifespan cost of a cataclysm promotion. Power surged through his veins as he absorbed several intermediate life soul stones. His remaining lifespan ticked back up to 6 years. The system interface flashed before his eyes. Evolving the skill to C rank would unlock 3 distinct paths: Summon Skeleton Warrior, Summon Skeleton Archer, or Summon Skeleton Mage. The weight of destiny rested on his shoulders. Which evolution path would secure his victory? Without a second thought, he locked in the Skeleton Warrior. Their massive health pool made them the ultimate meat shields. But the price was steep. The system mercilessly stripped away 5 years of his life. A blinding light enveloped his grimoire. His pathetic F-rank Summon Small Skeleton had violently mutated into the C-rank Summon Skeleton Warrior. The stats were completely transformed. It was now a level 8 C-rank skill, a mere 3-second cast time, a 30-second cooldown, and a cost of 300 mana. Best of all, the undead stats scaled directly with his own spirit attribute. The effects of the mutation were absolutely mind-blowing. Their maximum health skyrocketed by 500%, and their base attack power boosted by a full 100%. These bonuses were so utterly absurd for a C-rank skill, White Knight seriously wondered if the system itself was glitching out. Wasting no time, he chanted the incantation. A fresh army of bone warriors rose from the earth to face down Skeleton King Reggie. The raw numbers were terrifying. 930 across the board for strength, constitution, and agility. A staggering 69,750 health points, paired with 3,720 attack power and 930 physical defense. Even their innate skill, Heavy Strike, had soared to level 8. With a single swing of their massive blades, they could inflict 185% physical damage on a 30-second cooldown. But the mutation bonuses pushed them past the breaking point. That monstrous 500% health boost, the brutal 100% attack increase, every single attribute had been amplified to godlike levels. A cacophony of rattling bones echoed through the dungeon. The upgraded warriors charged forward, launching a devastating assault on Skeleton King Reggie. The boss roared, ordering its undead horde to hold the line. But White Knight's elite summons tore through their defenses, carving out massive chunks of damage. He relentlessly summoned wave after wave. Pushed to the brink, the Skeleton King's eyes flared with crimson fury. It had entered a berserk state. Its attack power and speed surged by a terrifying 50%. However, its defenses plummeted by the exact same amount. Seeing that fatal flaw, a wicked smirk crossed White Knight's face. To him, the boss hadn't grown stronger. It had just dug its own grave. He ordered his entire undead army to focus fire in one glorious, all-out strike. Reggie's health bar melted away into nothingness. A golden system notification chimed in the air. The mighty Skeleton King had fallen. He instantly secured a 50% experience bonus, followed by a colossal flood of 270,000 experience points. A pillar of light washed over him as he hit level 8. Gaining +1 to all 4 core attributes, a precious skill point, and a massive 15 free attribute points. But with that ocean of experience points, he knew the power leveling wasn't over yet. The system chimed again, confirming his breakthrough to level 9. Then a server-wide announcement flashed before his eyes. He was the very first player in Novice Village number 9527 to solo kill a terrifying dark gold grade boss. A king's ransom poured into his inventory, 40 intermediate life soul stones and 60 gleaming gold coins. His legendary feat wasn't just a personal victory. The notification echoed like thunder across the entire Novice Village. The notifications just kept coming. The system praised him for claiming the first clear of the Mist Forest in his village, tossing him 5 random level 1 attribute gems and another 5 gold coins. This single round of Cataclysm upgrades had drained over 13 years of his life force. But the shower of endless rewards made every lost second worth it. Because he had crushed the dungeon on Hell difficulty, the system showered him with even more loot. Another 20 intermediate life soul stones and 20 more gold coins. Yet, a slight frown creased White Knight's forehead. Technically speaking, he had just survived a disaster-level anomaly, not a standard Hell difficulty run. Meanwhile, back at the entrance of the Mist Forest, a heavily armored warrior was still shouting, desperately trying to recruit players for his raid. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Several awestruck rookies were already begging to join his ranks. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. All eyes turned toward a different party emerging from the tree line. Every single member was draped in shimmering high-tier gear. At the head of the pack was the infamous Wealthy World. Seeing her dripping in luxury wasn't a shock to anyone. Her equipment alone probably cost a small kingdom. Whispers spread through the crowd, questioning the true depths of her endless fortune. The armored recruiter confidently strode over to her, claiming her team's reputation preceded them. Her party offered a modest, polite smile. Brushing off the praise, they claimed they were nothing compared to him. The legendary Guildmaster Hongu. That stroke to his ego made Hongu throw back his head in a booming, arrogant laugh. Since the top players were all gathered, he proposed a high-stakes wager. Wealthy World crossed her arms, raising an intrigued eyebrow. She demanded to know the terms. Hongu flashed a predatory grin, challenging her to see who would claim the Mist Forest's first clear. Unfazed by his bravado, she coldly asked what was on the table. Hongu's eyes gleamed with ambition. He claimed his raw talent and her limitless funds were a match made in heaven. If his team secured the first clear, she and her elite party would have to serve under his hegemony guild. A confident smile played on her lips. And if her team conquered the forest first, what could he possibly offer that she didn't already own? Guildmaster Hongtu made his counteroffer. In the future, the mighty Hegemony Guild would mobilize their entire fighting force to grant them a single, absolute request. But Wealthy World was a cunning merchant at heart. She immediately pushed back, demanding not just 1, but 3 guaranteed favors in exchange. After a tense moment of silence, the pact was sealed. But right at that second, a blinding system announcement shattered the peace. The player known as White Knight had just stolen the absolute first clear of the Mist Forest. The entire crowd froze in sheer disbelief. Guildmaster Hongtu's face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. This absolute nobody, this White Knight, had completely trampled all over their grand schemes, making the top guilds look like total clowns. Gritting his teeth, he turned to Wealthy World. Since the normal difficulty first clear had been snatched away, their only choice left was to crush the hard mode dungeon instead. But before they could even move, a devastating cascade of world announcements bombarded the sky. First, White Knight had utterly conquered the hell difficulty of the Mist Forest. Second, he had become the first player in history to solo slaughter a dark gold grade boss. And then came the third notification, a supreme announcement echoing across the entire Blue Star Zone. The golden text congratulated the Divine Dragon Empire's own White Knight. He was officially the first player in the entire Blue Star Zone to solo eradicate a disaster-level dungeon. This is absolute madness! Guildmaster Hongtu roared, his pride shattered. Without wasting another breath, he and his elites charged desperately into the portal. Beside the portal, Cotton Candy anxiously asked Wealthy World if they were going to follow, but the elegant guild leader simply smiled. There was no need to act so desperately anymore. With the ultimate prize already stolen by a ghost, she preferred to stay back and watch how the tides of fate would turn. Meanwhile, deep within the Divine Dragon Empire's Novice Village, number 8888, inside the hell-level Mist Forest, a lone warrior with flowing black hair was locked in a deadly dance with the Goblin King. His blade moved like flowing water, calmly and perfectly deflecting every single one of the massive monster's crushing blows. This peerless expert was 3-foot sword edge. Glancing at the system notifications flashing across his vision, a spark of intense curiosity ignited in his eyes. Just what kind of heaven-defying talent had this white knight awakened? After all, even with his supreme martial mastery, he had been locked in this grueling battle of attrition for what felt like hours. Yet, the monstrous king still refused to fall. At that exact moment, far away in Novice Village number 9526, a blonde-haired man narrowed his eyes, muttering that the name White Knight sounded awfully familiar. A venomous beauty named Ruyan leaned into him, playfully asking what he meant. The man smirked, asking if it might be one of the pathetic lapdogs who used to chase after her. Her eyes narrowed into a dangerous glare. Was he seriously planning to toss her aside like a cheap pawn again? Zhao Shu chuckled evilly, pulling her soft body into a tight embrace. He whispered in her ear, telling her not to act so wrongfully accused. After all, he reminded her, when she was secretly planted by Su Mubai's side back in the real world, she had enjoyed years of absolute luxury and boundless wealth. If this cursed Myriad Worlds system hadn't descended upon reality, he would be sitting on the absolute throne of the business world right now. Ruyan frowned slightly, admitting that the alias White Knight did ring a distant bell. Then, like a bolt of lightning, the memory struck her. There was only one foolish man who used that exact same moniker in the old virtual reality games. Zhao Shu's grip tightened as he demanded a name. When she let the name Su Mubai slip from her lips, Zhao Shu immediately scoffed, violently shaking his head at the impossible notion. Su Mubai was completely, utterly dead. After all, Zhao Shu was the one who had stood over his hospital bed and ruthlessly pulled the life support plug with his own 2 hands. There was no way a dead man could enter the Myriad Worlds. He brushed it off as a pathetic coincidence. Millions of players could have chosen a generic title like White Knight, but a dark, sinister smile crept across his face. Even if by some twisted miracle it was that brat, it would only make crushing him for a second time that much sweeter. Zhao Shu knew exactly how obsessed Su Mubai had been with Ruyan. She could simply weave her web of seduction once more, and all that heaven-defying power would fall right into their laps. A wicked blush painted Ruyan's cheeks. Deep down, her arrogance and her own lethal charm was absolute. Honestly, she couldn't care less who this White Knight really was, as long as he could be controlled. Back in the absolute depths of the Mist Forest, the heavenly system voice continued to shower White Knight in supreme glory, immortalizing him as the first absolute conqueror of a Blue Star Zone disaster-level dungeon. The heavens parted as his legendary spoils materialized, a Class S rank skill book glowing with divine light and a single piece of awe-inspiring epic-grade equipment. A satisfied smirk crossed Su Mubai's face. The treasures born from a disaster-level trial were truly defying the very limits of the system. With this overwhelming power, even a single drop of spilled blood could be transformed into an inexhaustible sea of vitality. With a simple flick of his finger, he opened his spatial inventory. He instantly activated the forbidden skill, Siphon, a terrifying art that forcibly rips raw death energy from the fallen, storing it within his very soul. Each cast could drain up to 5 targets simultaneously. The cooldown was incredibly short, a mere 30 seconds. It consumed 0 mana, possessing an overwhelming reach of 50 meters. Currently, his dark reservoir sat completely empty, showing 0 out of 80 points. But the true horror lay in its counterpart. Feedback. A skill that could instantly mend his flesh and restore his magical reserves, or wildly mutate and empower his undead army. Also operating on a 30-second cooldown, it devoured anywhere from 1 to 80 points of pure death energy per use. The conversion rate was absolute madness. A single point of energy surged into 100 points of health or mana. Alternatively, it could violently boost a target's core attribute by 0.5% for a full 60 seconds. With this infinite engine of death, the very concept of running out of mana had been erased from his reality. Right now, the system offered him an unprecedented free evolution option. The divine prompt flashed before his eyes. Asking for confirmation to forcefully awaken the skill book, Death Siphon Feedback, straight to Tier 1. Without a second thought, he accepted the power. Dark energy spiraled into his mind as he completely mastered the terrifying art of Death Siphon Feedback. Time for a little test run. He pointed his hand toward the massive remains of the dark gold boss, Skeleton King Ragi. A suffocating vortex erupted, instantly ripping 320 points of dense death energy from the shattered bones. But instantly, an urgent system alarm blared in his head. His spiritual reservoir was already overflowing at maximum capacity. To devour any more souls, he would have to unleash this apocalyptic power first. He stared at his glowing hands in absolute awe. He never dreamed that a single boss corpse would yield such a monstrous, heaven-shaking amount of power. He figured the overwhelming death aura was a parting gift from the undead boss. And from those shattered remains, he pulled the Whisperer of the Dead robe, a top-tier cloth armor that pulsed with menacing dark energy. The best part? It scales perfectly with its master, continuously growing in power from level 10 all the way up to level 60. Quote, every 5 levels, Its stats would soar to new heights, reaching its ultimate form at the level 60 cap. This was no ordinary gear, it was a genuine epic-grade artifact. His heart raced at the thought that he might be holding the very first epic-grade equipment in the entire Blue Star Zone. But there was a catch. It still needed a proper appraisal, and those system appraisers always charged an absolute fortune. Tucking the rare treasure away for now, a sudden realization flashed through his mind like lightning. He eagerly dug deep into the scattered remains of Skeleton King Reggie, desperate to see what other treasures had dropped. His master plan? Box up the extra loot and ship it straight to Wealthy World. Considering he had essentially slaughtered this terrifying boss twice over, the drop rate was bound to be absolutely legendary. Suddenly, a dazzling explosion of loot blinded his eyes. He instantly bagged 10 shimmering gold coins, 38 silver coins, a +10 attribute gem, a +3 critical strike gem, and not one, but 5 shining gold-grade weapons. But wait, the jackpot was just beginning. A menacing dark gold tier artifact dropped, the Necklace of the Dead. It was accompanied by the Boots of the Shadow, heavy bone armor, and a massive giant bone sword. As if that was not enough, a pile of C-rank skill tomes scattered across the ground, radiating ancient knowledge. These included the coveted arts of Summon Skeleton Champion, Summon Skeleton Archer, and Summon Skeleton Mage. Even rare B-rank manuals appeared, revealing devastating techniques like Aura of the Dead and the Crushing Thunder Heavy Strike. The dark gold crafting materials alone were worth a king's ransom. He scooped up 10 Death Energy Bones, 10 Flickering Soul Remnants, and the mysterious Hale's Crystal Ball. Since our main character had already mastered the 3 core summoning arts for the Champion, the Archer, and the Mage, the system chimed in with a game-changing prompt. It asked if he wanted to fuse the 3 manuals together to create an ultimate skill, Summon Advanced Skeleton. He was utterly stunned. Who knew skill books could be merged like this to break their limits? Without a second thought, he confirmed the fusion, instantly mastering the newly evolved ability. This C-rank, level 1 technique was incredibly versatile. With a single thought, he could call upon a mighty champion, a lethal archer, or a destructive mage to crush his enemies. The cast time was merely 3 seconds, with a 30-second cooldown and a cost of 300 mana. But the true horror lay in its hidden traits. The first unlocked trait was utterly broken. It boosted the Skeleton Champion's health by 500% and completely doubled its attack power. The second and third traits were still shrouded in heavy chains. He guessed they belonged to the Archer and Mage, meaning the skill needed yet another evolution to unleash its full potential. Right on cue, the system interface glowed, urging him to choose a promotion path for his new summoning art. A basic promotion was completely free. However, sublimating it into the A-rank Summon Elite Skeleton would drain 10,000 gold coins. And the ultimate path? A cataclysmic evolution into the S-rank Summon Skeleton Legion, demanding a terrifying sacrifice of 1,000 years of lifespan. Weighing his options carefully, White Knight played it smart and chose the direct promotion. In a blinding flash of light, his C-rank summoning skill shattered its limits, ascending into a glorious B-rank, level 1 ability. Suddenly, a radiant blue orb hovered before him, pulsing with ancient magic. The system's mechanical voice echoed, asking if he dared to accept the legendary quest, Hale's Legacy. This was no ordinary mission. It was an epic-grade trial with nightmare-level difficulty, and the system practically begged him to tread carefully. If he accepted the burden, the seal on Hale's crystal ball would partially shatter, transforming it into a temporary piece of divine gear. But if he backed down, the crystal would tear through the fabric of space, vanishing forever to seek a braver soul. He realized this had to be the ultimate reward of the hidden storyline. Driven by insatiable curiosity, he wondered if a quest artifact could also undergo system evolution. He activated his interface to test the crazy theory. The response was instantaneous. The interface warped violently, now asking if he was ready to inherit an even darker burden, Dylan's sorrow. The stakes had just skyrocketed. This was a legendary-grade quest with a difficulty labeled as beyond imagination. The system flashed blood-red warnings. Accepting would partially unbind Dylan's crystal ball, granting him its devastating temporary power. But if fear took hold and he refused, the relic would shatter the void itself, abandoning him to find the true child of destiny. Without a single trace of hesitation, he accepted the challenge. But because his current power was deemed too weak, the system issued a harsh ultimatum. He had exactly 1 month to reach level 30 just to unlock the first phase. If he failed to meet the deadline, the legendary artifact would be violently ripped from his grasp forever. Only when the final seal was broken would Dylan's crystal ball reveal its terrifying true name to the world. This legendary relic was currently sitting at level 0, but its growth potential reached an astronomical level 200. Plus, its durability sat at a flawless 1,000 out of 1,000. The base stats alone were enough to make any top-tier player drool. It granted a massive plus 50 to spell power, boosted every single attribute by 20, and added 1,000 health and 2,000 mana to his pool. and the passive effects were absolutely god tier. The first ability passively spiked his spell critical rate by 30%, while amplifying his critical damage by a staggering 50%. The second and third enchantments were still bound by ancient magic, their true, world-breaking power remaining a complete mystery. Those hidden abilities would only awaken once he survived the first phase of the quest. But White Knight was already grinning ear to ear over that insane critical strike bonus. This entire dungeon run had been an absolute goldmine. The unbelievable haul of treasures had completely shattered his wildest expectations. With his inventory bursting with legendary loot, he finally made his way back to reunite with Wealthy World. Meanwhile, at the dungeon's entrance, Cotton Candy was pacing restlessly, asking Wealthy World when they were finally going to dive in. The sun was already bleeding into the horizon, and the rival guild, Hegemony, had stormed into the dungeon what felt like an eternity ago. Wealthy World kept his cool, insisting they needed to hold their ground a little longer. Just then, White Knight emerged from the swirling portal shadows, and she immediately rushed over to welcome their trump card. White Knight blinked in genuine surprise. They actually showed up to wait for him. The wealthy guild leader stepped forward, eagerly asking if he brought the promised goods. She cautiously suggested moving to a secure location for the trade, but he just waved off the idea. Right here, right now, was perfectly fine. Without warning, he summoned his undead legion. The sudden appearance of skeletal warriors sent shivers down everyone's spines. Wealthy World watched in awe, realizing his sheer power was completely off the charts. In her mind, the verdict was already sealed. This guy absolutely had to be an SSS-ranked talent player. But White Knight just smirked, telling her that her own talent was the real treasure here. He warned her that his inventory was absolutely packed, asking if she had the stomach to swallow the entire batch. With a fearless smile, she guaranteed that buying him out wouldn't be an issue at all. Boom! He dumped a mountain of loot right before their eyes. The entire party stood frozen in shock. Cotton Candy practically vibrated with excitement, drooling over the massive pile of D-rank skill books. She was staring at magical tomes she did not even know existed. The sheer volume of equipment sent a wave of pure ecstasy through the entire group. Wealthy World barely blinked at the mountain of treasure. She proudly told White Knight to name his absolute highest price, declaring she would buy every single piece. He casually listed the market rates: black iron gear for 5 silver, bronze tier for 20 silver, and D-rank skill books for a flat 20 gold coins each. She did not even flinch at the massive cost. With a flick of her wrist, a shower of coins landed perfectly in his hands. Deal closed. With the warm-up out of the way, she demanded to see the real top-tier treasures. His eyes flashed with quiet confidence as he confirmed he had them. Clang! A second wave of blinding loot crashed to the ground. Their jaws practically unhinged at the sight of glowing gold-grade armor, an ultra-rare C-rank skill book, and a dozen other premium treasures. White Knight chuckled, pointing out that her deep pockets might actually be hitting their limit. Blushing slightly, she confessed that clearing this out today was impossible. But our main character was already 10 steps ahead. He casually offered to hand over the legendary stash right now, letting them clear the remaining balance tomorrow. He wasn't the slightest bit worried about getting scammed. The absolute authority of a system trade contract would bind their souls to the deal anyway. Seeing his absolute lack of hesitation, she dropped the polite merchant act. Looking him dead in the eye, she demanded the final, astronomical price. He casually stated that most gear was up for debate, but the glowing tome in his hand was locked at 500 gold coins. It was the Mythical Resurrection skill book. The specs were absolutely insane. A C-rank active ability, with literally 0 level requirements to use. It granted the divine power to bring a fallen player back from the dead outside of combat while slashing that brutal death penalty by 50%. The casting range covered a massive 50 meters, needing only 5 seconds to channel, with a mere 60-second cooldown. It cost 300 mana points, and was exclusively locked to the priest class. Cotton Candy looked like she was about to ascend to heaven from pure joy. Wealthy World slammed her fist down, sealing the deal and swearing on her honor to deliver the gold tomorrow. White Knight smiled, fully aware of her overpowered god of wealth talent. Its first divine effect let her literally shake a money tree once a day, dropping a randomized bounty of 1 to 999 gold coins. Her absolute certainty of handing over 500 gold by tomorrow clearly proved the terrifying potential of her talent's other 2 hidden effects. Then, a strategic thought crossed his mind. He remembered their triumphant first blood against the bronze-grade boss had rewarded them with 2 ultra-rare life soul stones. His eyes gleamed with a businessman's cunning as he proposed yet another high-stakes bargain. He confidently swore to hand them the server's first clear of the nightmare difficulty Mist Forest. Plus, he would boost their power enough to farm the hell difficulty. However, a prize that legendary came with one very specific condition. He demanded total monopoly over the life soul stones. He wanted their current stash, plus every single stone dropped from the Mist Forest first clear. Wealthy World and Maple Leaf Shouse exchanged a heavily weighted glance. After a tense moment, they both nodded in absolute agreement. Fast forward to the dungeon run. While the entire party was sweating blood to slaughter monsters, White Knight was literally kicking back and relaxing. The system chimed endlessly with glorious kill notifications and free experience points. Even while stuck at 1 hit point, life was an absolute breeze, and his leveling speed was rocketing past the charts. Ding! A golden light enveloped his body. The system officially announced his promotion to level 9. He gladly accepted his +1 attribute point, +1 skill point, and a massive +15 free attribute points. Meanwhile, his eyes scanned the area, wondering where on earth that legendary appraiser was hiding. He had trekked all the way out here to find this non-player character and unlock his sealed gear. Yet, there was not a single trace of the man anywhere. He honestly could not wrap his head around it. Why would a master appraiser abandon a lucrative shop just to obsess over painting? Instead of doing his actual job, this crazy old man was supposedly out in the wild sketching landscapes. Suddenly, a brutal system alert shattered his thoughts. His mighty skeleton champion had been killed. Boom! His mythical cataclysm trait instantly activated. The fallen skeleton champion was dragged back from the void, respawning in his summon space with full health. But there was a massive catch. That invincible resurrection effect was now locked behind a brutal 60-minute cooldown. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His skeleton champion boasted a monstrous 150,000 health points. Yet, something out there had completely obliterated it in a single strike. His mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Could the missing appraiser be the monster behind this one-shot kill? Regret washed over him like a tidal wave. If he knew a simple non-player character packed this kind of god-tier firepower, he would have hoarded way more of his lifespan as a backup. While White Knight anxiously peered over the edge of the cliff, a voice suddenly echoed from right behind his neck. The stranger casually praised him, saying he wasn't half bad for someone controlling piles of trash bones. There he stood. Huai Jian, the eccentric appraiser and wandering artist of Novice Village 9527. The system completely glitching out. His level and health points were totally blocked by question marks. White Knight's heart pounded like a war drum as he registered the terrifying, god-like speed of this hidden master. Jian scoffed. He rarely stepped out to capture the breathtaking scenery, yet this brat's disgusting pile of bones had completely ruined his artistic flow. "Speak!" he demanded, his voice dripping with annoyance. "How do you plan to compensate this master?" White Knight sweated nervously, asking if gold coins would be enough to smooth things over. Snatching the heavy pouch, Jian glared down at him. Do I look like a beggar who lacks money? But surprisingly, the grumpy master decided to be merciful. He declared the penalty would be exactly 100 coins. And as a bonus, White Knight would receive the very masterpiece he had been working on. After all, a hidden master's artwork was priceless. This lucky brat should be falling to his knees in profound gratitude. White Knight carefully unrolled the parchment, and his soul left his body. A 3-year-old blindfolded could have drawn a better landscape, but Jian caught that split-second look of disgust. Instantly, a terrifying, blood-chilling aura erupted from the old man's body. Panic set in. White Knight desperately waved his hands, swearing it was a misunderstanding. He claimed he needed to meditate and purify his hands before he was worthy to absorb the profound martial insights hidden within the brushstrokes. The terrifying aura vanished in a flash. Jian stroked his chin, thoroughly flattered. "Not bad, kid. You actually have a good eye." His foul mood completely cured, the master made an unprecedented offer. Did the boy have any unverified loot? Because today, the appraisal would be absolutely free. White Knight bowed instantly, thanking his lucky stars for this incredible fortune. As Jian ran his expert eyes over the glowing gear, he nodded in genuine approval. The kid possessed decent combat power, but his drop rate luck was simply heaven-defying. Then reality hit him. 4 high-tier items for a measly 100 coins? He had scammed himself. Grumbling under his breath, Jian chanted an ancient incantation, and the system interface flared to life. A dazzling notification appeared. The first item was the Shadow Boots, level 10 heavy plate footwear, radiating the menacing aura of a dark gold-grade treasure. Its durability was a perfect 200 out of 200. To wield it, a warrior needed 80 points in strength and 50 points in raw constitution. The base stats were insane. Plus 75 physical defense, plus 50 magic resistance, and a massive boost of plus 800 to maximum health. But that was not all. It granted plus 20 strength, plus 20 constitution, plus 10 agility, and a straight 10% multiplier to total movement speed. The boots even possessed an innate active skill. Shadow Step. The wearer could literally melt into the darkness, boosting their speed by a terrifying 60% while reducing all incoming damage by 10%. This godly stealth effect lasted 30 seconds, with a 10-minute cooldown, and as a hidden bonus, equipping them instantly unlocked the legendary passive technique, Ghost Step Dance. Next up was the Heavy Bone Armor, a level 10, upper body plate mail boasting an ultra-rare upgrade capacity of 3 out of 3. Another blinding dark gold tier artifact. flawless durability at 200 out of 200. But the stat requirements were brutal, demanding 100 strength and 80 constitution. The defensive capabilities were like an impenetrable fortress, plus 180 physical defense, plus 120 magic resistance, and an astronomical plus 1,200 health points. It further blessed the wearer with plus 25 strength and plus 25 constitution, all while permanently shaving off 100 points from any physical attack received. The attached divine skill? Bone Armor, an active spell that summoned skeletal plating to physically shield the user's mortal flesh. Upon activation, the armor's damage reduction and reflection properties skyrocketed by a monstrous 300%. Active for 30 seconds with a 10-minute cooldown, it was part 1 of the 2-piece bone set. Completing the set would unlock an extra 10% damage output and a solid 10% boost to all physical defense. The third revelation was a weapon of pure carnage, the Heavy Bone Sword. A level 10, two-handed greatsword, upgradable 3 out of 3 times, and glowing with that unmistakable dark gold brilliance. Max durability sat at 200 out of 200, but only true powerhouses could lift it, requiring a staggering 120 strength points. The offensive stats were absolutely broken. Plus 288 base attack and plus 50 strength. Every swing unleashed 30% splash damage. Its innate skill, Powerful Strike, gave any normal hit the chance to trigger devastating triple damage. This monstrous blade completed the other half of the bone set. Finally, the last fully revealed treasure emerged. The Necklace of the Dead, a level 10 dark gold tier accessory. Holding 200 out of 200 durability, it demanded exactly 100 spirit points to wear. It was a mage's ultimate dream. Plus 80 raw spell power, plus 500 health, and a bottomless mana pool expansion of plus 1,000. The stat buffs continued with plus 30 spirit, plus 10 constitution, and plus 10 agility, even scarier. Basic attacks had a chance to inflict a horrific curse, shredding both physical and magic defenses by 100 points. Even the user's summoned familiars could trigger this armor-breaking curse. The attached passive, the Dead, fortified the user's mind, cutting all fear-based status ailments by a massive 50%. Jian crossed his arms, his eye twitching. He grumbled that normally, unsealing just one of these relics would cost a small fortune of 100 gold pieces. In other words, White Knight had just robbed him blind with this astronomical freebie. Now take your cursed bone pile and get out of my sight, Jian barked, eager to return to his art. But before the master could turn away, White Knight suddenly asked him to wait. A vein popped on Jian's forehead. Was this brat seriously pushing his luck? Did he really have another dark gold relic hiding in his inventory? The old man's heart bled with regret. Offering free services to this walking treasure trove was the worst business deal of his entire life. But when the next item appeared, the air itself froze. It was not dark gold. It was a legendary epic-grade artifact. White Knight just scratched his head, humbly claiming it was pure luck. A chilling aura filled the area as he revealed the true prize. The Robes of the Dead's Whisper. White Knight was not stupid. If a dark gold appraisal cost an arm and a leg, an epic item would bankrupt him. He fully intended to milk this free appraisal promise to the last drop. Jian stared at the majestic robes. Swallowing his pride, he kept his word. He would not charge a single copper for this, but there was one massive, embarrassing problem. His appraisal skill level simply was not high enough. The hidden master could not unlock it. The great system barrier rejected his magic entirely. White Knight's jaw hit the floor in absolute disbelief. Flustered and red-faced, Jian angrily defended himself. I am just a part-time appraiser trapped in a starter town. What right do you have to expect me to identify an epic-grade, heaven-defying treasure? White Knight paused to consider the old man's words. Surprisingly, the eccentric logic actually held up perfectly. In a twist of fate, Jian offered to pass down his own appraisal technique. For our protagonist, this was an absolute goldmine of an opportunity. Mastering this art meant saying goodbye to those outrageous appraisal fees forever. But naturally, the greedy old man demanded a hefty tuition fee up front. When asked for the exact price, Jian simply smirked and held up 5 weathered fingers. 500 standard coins? Not even close. Jian scoffed, revealing the true cost. He demanded 500 ancient gold coins. These legendary relics were minted during the very dawn of this world, making them incredibly scarce. Though long dead in the modern market, elite collectors treated them like holy grails, valuing them far above ordinary gold. A sly grin crossed White Knight's face. He suddenly remembered a loophole. His divine cheat had previously evolved regular copper into ancient copper. He already had a stash sitting right in his inventory. The real question was, could his upgrade ability mutate standard gold into ancient gold? Just then, a familiar chime echoed in his mind. The system announced that Jian had officially added him to his friend list. A hidden quest window flickered to life. The mission was to collect ancient gold coins. The absolute objective was to secure exactly 500 of these rare relics for the eccentric old man. The ultimate prize waiting at the finish line was the coveted subclass skill, basic appraisal technique. Assuming the impossible task would take weeks, Jian turned to leave. But White Knight casually called out to him, instantly sparking the old man's intense annoyance. As Jian spun around in frustration, his jaw practically hit the floor. Our hero was casually tossing a massive heavy sack overflowing with gleaming ancient gold. With a cool and collected tone, White Knight simply asked if they could begin the appraisal lesson right now. The old man's annoyance vanished in an instant, replaced by sheer glee. He laughed out loud, admitting this rookie had completely shattered his expectations. Without another word, Jian tossed over the glowing skill book. In the blink of an eye, the hidden mission was cleared, and the ultimate reward was secured. Before vanishing into the shadows, Jian dropped a massive hint. He challenged White Knight to return with 10,000 ancient gold coins, promising an unimaginable surprise if he succeeded. The system flared up once more, initiating the next impossible tier. He received a brand new mission called Collect Ancient Gold Coins Part 2. The stakes were massively raised to 10,000 ancient coins, all for a mystery reward shrouded in absolute secrecy. White Knight chuckled to himself. This eccentric non-player character was full of secrets, and that promised surprise was bait he simply could not ignore. But basic tier trash would never satisfy someone with his ambitions. Triggering his cheat, he instantly promoted the skill and obtained the intermediate appraisal technique. The moment the knowledge rushed into his brain, the system crowned him with a brand new title, Intermediate Appraiser. His proficiency sat at a pathetic 0 out of 1,000. To master this art, he needed to grind, bumping up his success rate with every single attempt. For legendary dark gold grade equipment, he was looking at a solid 60% chance of success. But epic tier gear? That dropped to a brutal 10%. Add in a 5-second cast time, a 60-second cooldown, and a massive drain of 1,000 mana points per try. The beauty of subclass skills was they did not waste his precious combat slots. He immediately fired it off on his mysterious gear, but the spell shattered. A 10% chance was practically a gamble. Was his luck truly this cursed? He refused to back down, spamming the skill over and over, only to be mocked by relentless system failure notifications. Driven by sheer stubbornness, he relentlessly poured his mana into the item until absolute exhaustion finally forced him to stop. Just as he was catching his breath, the radar pinged wildly. A wild treasure chest had spawned nearby. Destiny was truly working in his favor today. In this brutal world, high-level guardians meant top-tier loot. His blood pumped with excitement as he immediately rushed toward the coordinates. Arriving at the scene, he found a fierce pack of savage wolves guarding the glowing chest. A wicked smile spread across his face. This was exactly the kind of prey he wanted. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned his loyal undead army. The skeleton warriors erupted from the shadows, charging headfirst into the feral beast pack. The towering alpha wolf unleashed a blood-curdling howl, summoning a massive wave of reinforcements. But White Knight just laughed. When it came to a war of numbers, the Necromancer was the undisputed king. Bone blades flashed in the moonlight, slaughtering the wolves in a ruthless symphony of destruction. Even the mighty alpha was mercilessly torn apart, whimpering its final breath. White Knight casually dusted off his hands, mocking the so-called boss. He had not even deployed his full army formation yet, and the beast was already fertilizer. The kill feed exploded with glorious alerts. The system verified he had successfully eradicated a level 10 reinforced elite monster. Slaying the prairie vicious wolf triggered a massive extra 50% level gap multiplier, flooding his bar with plus 450 experience points. But the real prize was the level 10 silver grade boss, the Prairie Wolf King. That monumental kill stacked another 50% gap bonus, injecting a staggering plus 36,000 experience points straight into his soul. The loot explosion was blinding. 1 glorious gold coin, 38 silver pieces, a pristine level 1 agility gem, and a mysterious basic skill book dropped from the heavens. A golden pillar of light engulfed him as he shattered the level 10 barrier. The system granted him +1 to his 4 core attributes, +1 skill point, and a massive +15 free attribute points. A worldwide server announcement echoed across the skies. He was officially the very first player in the entire Blue Star Zone to conquer level 10, unlocking the legendary title, Far Ahead. Staring down at the untouched treasure chest, a crazy idea sparked in his mind. Could his divine cheat actually promote wild spawns? He immediately channeled his power to test the theory. A blinding flash confirmed the impossible. The chest evolved right before his eyes. Ripping off the lid, he secured a magnificent gold-grade weapon, the legendary Withered Wood Staff. Alongside it lay a gleaming gold-grade treasure map. Yet, staring at the empty bottom of the chest, our overpowered hero could only sigh in disappointment at such a meager haul. But it was the weathered treasure map that truly ignited his curiosity. The faint glowing trails promised something magnificent, a legendary gold-grade treasure chest. A translucent blue system window suddenly popped up before his eyes. It prompted him, asking if he wished to activate the treasure map. Upon confirmation, a glowing path etched itself across his virtual interface. But the destination coordinates? They pointed far beyond the safe borders of the novice village. Right on cue, another system alert chimed in his ear. He had officially hit the absolute level cap for beginners. His experience bar was completely locked. Until he sought out the village chief and registered with an affiliated city, all future experience points would vanish into the void. The absolute rule of this world became crystal clear. Hitting level 10 meant stepping out of the cradle. It was finally time to leave the novice village behind. Setting his sights on the chief's location, he casually tossed an upgrade skill at the map along the way. A blinding flash of light erupted. The parchment had transformed into a breathtaking dark gold-grade treasure map. The golden trail shifted violently across his interface. The new coordinates locked onto a perilous zone, deep in the uncharted territories outside Jingu City. The system's mechanical voice urged him forward, instructing him to proceed to the designated coordinates to commence the hunt. But the distance was staggeringly vast. It would literally require him to cross international borders. Tucking the map away, he accepted that this epic loot would just have to wait. Meanwhile, the atmosphere outside the dungeon was suffocating. Guildmaster Hongtu emerged from the shadows, his aura reeking of arrogance and sweat. A golden banner flashed across Novice Village number 9527. The system announced that Hegemony Guild had claimed the server's first clear of the Land of Mist on hard difficulty. High on their victory, Hongtu roared at his elites to prepare for a nightmare difficulty run. But before their cheers could even echo, a second system banner shattered their glory. The server announcement blared like a war horn. Wealthy World Squad had conquered the Land of Mist, securing the glorious first clear on nightmare difficulty. Hongtu's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. The color drained entirely from his face as he realized they had completely stolen his victory. Snapping open his communicator, he furiously demanded to know how her team cleared Nightmare so fast. But Wealthy World's reply was dripping with elegant sarcasm, simply wishing him good luck. Hongtu gritted his teeth, his fury boiling over. He knew the bitter truth. That bastard White Knight had sold all the top-tier gear and skill books exclusively to her. Since that arrogant brat dared to cross the Hegemony Guild, Hongtu swore he would personally grind him into dust. Unaware of his death threats, Wealthy World casually dismissed her team to rest before their hell difficulty farming session. Suddenly, the heavens themselves seemed to tremble. A blinding, server-wide blue star announcement erupted across the sky. The majestic system voice echoed through the minds of millions. It congratulated Divine Dragon Empire player White Knight for becoming the first in the entire Blue Star Zone to shatter the level 10 barrier. This unprecedented milestone triggered a massive shockwave. The global system override activated, forcing the Novice Village level leaderboard to unlock far ahead of schedule. A glowing golden parchment unfurled in the sky above Novice Village number 9527, displaying the absolute peak of human strength. First place, White Knight, level 10, no faction. Trailing far behind in second place was Maple Leaf Xiao, level 5, no faction. Third place, Awe, level 5, no faction. Fourth place went to Hard to Wake Up, level 5, no faction. And holding fifth was the elegant, Wealthy World, level 5, no faction. Sixth place, Cotton Candy, level 5, no faction. It wasn't until 7th place that Grand Hegemony finally appeared, representing the Hegemony Guild at level 5. Clinging to 8th place was One Sword Seal's Throat, another level 5 from the Hegemony Guild. Rounding out the bottom were Turkey Flavor Rice Crust in 9th, and Milky White Snow taking the 10th spot. Both level 5, both wearing the Hegemony Guild crest. Staring at the golden board, Hongtu's face twisted into an ugly snarl. This ranking was an absolute humiliation for a premier guild. Elsewhere, Cotton Candy gasped in pure awe, telling her boss that White Knight's leveling speed was absolutely monstrous. Maple Leaf Xiao vigorously nodded, comparing his growth to a man strapped to a rocket. The gap was terrifying. Just a fleeting moment ago during their trade, he had only been sitting at level 8, while they were level 5. With the glowing life soul stones finally in her inventory, Wealthy World immediately set out to fulfill her end of the bargain with White Knight. Her sharp merchant instincts were screaming. Securing a flawless relationship with a monster like him was paramount. Dismissing her squad to farm independently, she rushed back to the village. Tracking his coordinates, she intercepted him just in time. With a graceful smile, she initiated the trade, transferring the 10 precious basic life soul stones they had looted from the Nightmare clear. Her voice carried a sweet but deeply professional undertone. She told him that if he acquired any more divine loot in the future, she sincerely hoped he would remember her guild first. She confidently promised that gold coins would never be an issue. Right on cue, a system prompt chimed cheerfully in White Knight's ear, confirming their trade contract was successfully fulfilled. White Knight flashed a faint, mysterious smile. He assured her that as long as her pockets were deep, there would naturally be no shortage of top-tier arsenal. Turning toward his next destination, he threw a final glance over his shoulder. He told her to send him a message when she finally broke out of the novice village. Watching his retreating back, a triumphant spark lit up Wealthy World's eyes. Hitching her wagon to this rising star was definitely her greatest investment yet. Meanwhile, White Knight approached a rundown, unassuming cabin. His gamer instincts told him this was the quest hub. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing a burly man with a thick brown beard, whose eyes widened in genuine shock at seeing a descender reach level 10 so fast. It was the elusive village chief himself. White Knight wasted no time on pleasantries, stating clearly that he was ready to leave the novice village. The chief let out a deep, booming laugh of approval. He agreed, noting that this god-forsaken realm was destined to be shaped by the descenders anyway. Gesturing toward the back room, he commanded White Knight to follow. Suddenly, ancient runic arrays erupted into a blinding light across the floorboards as the chief told him to step inside. The spatial coordinates locked into place. Their humble village's teleportation gateway was directly linked to the legendary East Sea City. This was no ordinary settlement. East Sea City was one of the 10 glorious level 1 main cities of the Divine Dragon Empire and the absolute crown jewel of its prosperous coastal territories. As the magical light completely enveloped White Knight's body, the village chief offered his final blessing. He declared that the moment he set foot in East Sea City, his true legend would finally begin. With a deep bow of gratitude, White Knight made a solemn vow. If destiny allowed it, he would return one day to repay this monumental debt. But as his figure vanished into the void, the village chief could only let out a heavy, sorrowful sigh. Staring into the empty space, the old man muttered a dark prophecy. The era of absolute chaos was about to descend upon this god-forsaken land once again. And this time, heaven only knew how many oceans of blood would be spilled. Meanwhile, in another corner of the world, Zhu turned to his companion, his voice laced with intense doubt. Did Ruan truly believe that this mysterious White Knight could actually be the legendary Mubai? A dangerous, predatory smirk crept across Ruan's face. To her, his true identity meant absolutely nothing. She possessed absolute confidence. The moment their paths finally crossed, he would never escape the palm of her hand. Flash over to the magnificent East Sea City. As the teleportation light faded, White Knight stepped into his new reality. He gazed around in pure awe. The sheer detail of this world felt terrifyingly real. Still, a frustrated sigh escaped his lips. Leaving the novice village didn't even grant a single hidden reward or special achievement. What an absolute rip-off. But suddenly, ding! A crisp system notification shattered his disappointment. The legendary death scripture had officially reached level 10. This divine artifact was permanently bound to his very soul. It was an absolute anomaly. It could never be dropped, damaged, or traded to another player. With a mere thought, he could manifest it into reality or vanish it into the void. Currently locked at level 10 to match his character's growth, its basic stats were completely broken. Plus 300 to spell power, plus 100 to every single attribute, and a monstrous 100% damage boost for all undead creatures. Naturally, every single entity he summoned would inherit this heaven-defying buff. But the true horror lay in its passive effect, Soul Siphon. Any target slaughtered by him or his undead army would have a fragment of their very soul devoured by his scripture. The consequences were devastating. Wild monsters slain by his hand would suffer a terrifying penalty, taking twice as long to respawn. And if a player fell to his blade, they would endure double the death penalties, including an absolute loss of real-world lifespan. Checking his status, his current soul points sat at absolute 0. He needed to harvest exactly 1,000 soul points just to earn a second chance to unlock the next chapter of this forbidden grimoire. Its second hidden effect would remain sealed until he hit level 30. This ancient scripture was not just a weapon, it was a book of universal laws that only his eyes could decipher. And once the conditions of fate were met, he could instantly learn the exclusive, heaven-defying skills of the Death Sovereign from its pages. A wicked grin formed on his face. Inflicting double death penalties and mastering exclusive god-tier skills? Now this was exactly his kind of game. As he flipped open the heavy cover, ancient runes floated into the air, blazing with spectral light. That same eerie glow ignited within his own eyes. In that very second, a forbidden skill etched itself into his mind. Death Gaze. Agony ripped through his brain like shattered glass. But as the pain faded, the ultimate power was his. Let us look at the stats. Death Gaze. SSS rank skill. Level 1. Proficiency at 0 out of 50. This active skill was the literal embodiment of nightmares. Here were its devastating effects. First rule of death. It dealt true, unmitigated damage equal to 50% of his spell power every single second for 10 agonizing seconds. Second rule. Any creature caught in his stare would be paralyzed by an endless wave of pure terror. Third rule of death. Any being with a life level inferior to his would instantly suffer a brutal 20% drop to all their stats the moment his eyes locked onto them. This sheer suppression was dictated entirely by the hierarchy of life. It completely bypassed all forms of magical resistance. And the fourth, most ruthless rule: any victim executed by the death gaze would experience soul-rending agony in their final moments. Even if they managed to resurrect, they would be cursed with a severe weakened state, a catastrophic 40% reduction to all attributes for 12 grueling hours. This nightmare technique was an instant cast with a mere 60-second cooldown, draining just 5% of his maximum mana. Once unleashed, it required 0 continuous channeling time and boasted a terrifying maximum attack range of 100 meters. To put it simply, wherever the Sovereign's eyes landed, the shadow of the Grim Reaper was absolutely sure to follow. White Knight was absolutely blown away by the continuous true damage. And the promotion traits thrilled him even more, promising to eventually double both the damage output and his massive strike radius. Though, he had to admit, the concept of killing anyone simply by staring at them felt just a little bit absurdly overpowered. Suddenly, a profound voice echoed from the nearby shadows. The mysterious figure remarked that he never expected a mere descender to awaken such ancient, taboo power. Stepping into the light, he declared that White Knight was simultaneously blessed by the heavens and cursed by fate. Startled, White Knight demanded to know who was speaking. Before him stood a dignified elder with flowing silver hair and a long beard. This was Situ Ji, the absolute ruler of EC City and an exalted elder of the Divine Dragon Hall. His aura was suffocating. He was undoubtedly a supreme powerhouse whose level was completely masked by the system. Showing proper respect, White Knight formally greeted City Lord Situ. The elder's ancient eyes gleamed with intense fascination. He confirmed that the young warrior before him was indeed carrying the aura of absolute death. With a single glance, Situ saw right through the system's veils, realizing White Knight had already awakened a supreme sovereign-class profession. According to the ancient laws, such an absolute path should never have manifested in the God-forbidden land. Our main character broke out in a cold sweat, completely shocked that this supreme NPC could shatter his perfect disguise. Situ then shook his head, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. What a tragic destiny. By walking the path of the Death Sovereign, his journey to the peak would be 1,000 times more brutal than any other sovereign class. His curiosity piqued and his heart racing. White Knight respectfully asked the elder to explain this grim prophecy. The old master's expression turned stern. The truth could only be earned through a trial of blood and bone. If he managed to pass this test, the deepest secrets of the Death Sovereign would finally be unveiled. Ding! The system chimed instantly. He had just acquired a mystical quest item, the legendary Medal of the Forgotten. Without a moment's hesitation, he accepted an epic-grade mission simply titled C2's Test. The objective was incredibly straightforward yet completely suicidal. Enter the Land of the Forgotten and achieve a 100% exploration rate. The ultimate reward was entirely shrouded in mystery. And strangely enough, the system displayed absolutely 0 penalty for failure. White Knight stood frozen in sheer disbelief. Did he seriously just trigger a priceless epic-grade hidden quest right out of the gate? But before he could even celebrate, the ancient metal began a merciless countdown. The forced teleportation sequence was initiating. A wave of panic crashed over him as the world began to violently spin. He was caught completely off guard. He hadn't even had a single second to prepare. The plan was to safely socket those precious gems into his gear first. Frustration boiled over as he shouted into the void. Where in the world was the teleportation array for the Land of the Forgotten? But ready or not, he had officially crossed the threshold into the dead zone. The epic quest, C2's trial, had officially begun. The clear conditions were absolute. He had exactly 72 hours to sweep the entire realm and achieve 100% exploration. Wasting no time, White Knight called upon his loyal shadow army. Let's be real, surviving solo in this dreadful place was a death sentence. With a surge of dark mana, his brand new skeleton mage materialized. Its stats were absolutely monstrous. 5,080 spirit, 580 agility, 580 constitution, and a massive 20,640 health points. Its spell power broke the 10,160 mark, backed by 1,693 physical defense. But the real kicker was its core skill, Fireball. At rank E, level 9, it unleashed a devastating 220% of spell power as pure fire damage. All it took was a 1.5-second chant, followed by a mere 30-second cooldown. A wicked grin spread across White Knight's face. Armed with ranged explosive magic, the offensive power of his undead legion had skyrocketed to terrifying heights. And right on cue, the welcome committee arrived. A horde of enemy skeletons clawed their way out of the dirt. They were level 20 normal mobs, boasting 5,000 health, 200, 10 attack, 120, physical defense, and 80 magic defense. These mindless grunts were the absolute plague of the Land of the Forgotten. Individually weak, but their numbers were an absolute nightmare. With a swift wave of his hand, White Knight issued the command, All forces, obliterate them! Almost instantly, the system chimed, confirming the execution of a level 20 skeleton. Thanks to the massive level gap, a sweet 50% bonus kicked in, rewarding him with a solid 30 experience points. His exclusive passive Far Ahead triggered right after, tossing in an extra 6 experience. But despite the fast kills, White Knight furrowed his brows. Something wasn't adding up. Why did these level 20 undead drop less experience than the level 10 wild bison from the previous zone? Whatever, progress was still progress. The battlefield became an absolute meat grinder. Endless waves of skeletons shattered into dust, while the system practically spammed his vision with non-stop kill confirmations. It was the perfect time to test drive his newest divine ability, Death Gaze. The second, his eyes glowed with abyssal power, the advancing vanguard simply collapsed into piles of bone. Instant annihilation from a single glance. Even he was left utterly speechless. This crowd control skill was an absolute game changer. Though, he couldn't help but laugh at the sheer irony of it all. Using a death spell to kill things that were already dead? Talk about overkill. Unleashing his full power without an ounce of mercy, he swiftly restored his mana pool. With the front line cleared, he pulled out his supreme artifact, the Death Scripture. But the display read a glaring 0 soul points. White Knight stared at the floating interface, his mind hitting a total blank. This didn't make any sense at all. He had slaughtered hundreds of mobs, so where in the world did their souls vanish to? Just as the frustration began to mount, an eerie, hollow voice echoed through the desolate wasteland. The mournful spirit whispered through the wind, declaring the true, tragic nature of the land of the forgotten. It revealed that the beings here were bound by a terrifying curse from their past lives, trapping their souls for eternity. From the chilling mist, a spectral figure materialized, introducing himself as Road, a member of the Forgotten. The system immediately flagged him as a level 20 special elite soul form. He boasted a staggering 100,000 health points, and worse, his ethereal body was completely immune to all physical damage. Narrowing his eyes, White Knight demanded answers about this so-called curse. With a heavy sigh, Road explained the bitter truth. Not a single soul could be harvested from this realm until the ancient seal was completely shattered. The gamer in him instantly saw the quest trigger. How exactly do we break it? He asked. In response, Road silently raised a trembling, translucent finger toward an ominous pillar of light piercing the dark sky. Following his gaze, White Knight squinted through the gloom. There, suspended in the eerie glow, was a massive coffin wrapped tightly in heavy, cursed chains. A chill ran down his spine. The lid was partially shattered, and a terrifying skeletal face framed by long, rotting black hair was actively peeking out. Driven by pure, reckless curiosity, White Knight stepped right into the danger zone. The oppressive aura was so thick that even his fearless undead legion hesitated to move forward. Sensing the intense dread, White Knight turned to the spirit and asked what made this burial box so terrifyingly special. Road's voice trembled as he named the artifact, the soul-locking coffin. Its stats were insane. A colossal 1 million point shield value, backed by 1,000 physical defense and 1,000 magic defense. Ding! The system cheerfully announced that merely laying eyes on this cursed relic had pushed his exploration progress up by a solid 2%. And the temptation didn't end there. Smashing it to pieces would yield another massive 3% completion. But of course, a glaring, blood-red warning flashed across his screen. The moment those chains snapped, an unspeakable horror would be unleashed upon the world. The system explicitly warned him to measure his own strength before doing something incredibly stupid. Desperation practically dripped from Road's spectral form as he begged the hero to shatter the seal. But White Knight wasn't acting out of righteousness. A wicked thrill pumped through his veins. He just wanted to see exactly what kind of monster was hiding inside. With a fearless smirk, he gave the order for an all-out assault. His loyal skeleton warriors charged like a tidal wave, raining down a frenzy of merciless slashes upon the cursed casket. Steel clashed against cursed wood in a deafening symphony of destruction. Under the relentless barrage, the coffin's seemingly invincible million-point shield plummeted into the absolute red zone. The phantom NPC began to totally lose it, screaming that the nightmare was waking up. Yet White Knight just stood there, watching the show with burning anticipation. And then, the absolute worst-case scenario erupted. Boom! The heavy lid exploded outward, revealing a gigantic, overwhelmingly fierce skeletal beast tangled in thick iron chains. Enter Neil, one of the legendary Forgotten. The scan results were downright terrifying. A level 20 dark gold-grade boss, a half-frost lich, and his health bar? A monstrous 1,500,000 points of pure, unbreakable dread. His offensive specs were just as ridiculous. 12,800 spell power, coupled with 1,500 physical defense, 2,100 magic defense, and a flat 20% resistance to all elemental attacks. To make matters worse, his arsenal was a lethal cocktail of absolute zero frost magic and soul-rotting shadow curses. It was painfully obvious what had happened. This tyrant had been incubating, trying to ascend into a true, almighty lich, but had been rudely interrupted mid-evolution. Crimson soulfire flared in Neil's hollow eye sockets as he glared at White Knight with bottomless fury. This pesky little outsider had completely sabotaged his grand ascension. Rhodes shrieked in absolute terror, begging the young master to run for his life before they were all wiped out. But right before the boss could unleash his wrath, he froze in his tracks. His senses locked onto a familiar, mouth-watering energy radiating from the human's core. An unbelievably rich and powerful death aura. A sinister, bone-chilling laugh echoed through the cavern. If he could just devour this boy's dark energy, his failed evolution could finally be completed. The real battle for survival was just beginning. White Knight merely raised a single brow, his voice dripping with absolute calm. "Tell me," he provoked, "who gave you the delusion that you could actually pull that off?" With a mere flick of his wrist, he commanded his skeletal legion to strike. The undead warriors surged forward like a tidal wave of bone, swarming Neil from every conceivable blind spot. Yet, Neil did not even flinch. Boasting an impenetrable wall of defense, he scoffed at the swarm, utterly convinced that these trash-tier summons could never scratch his armor. To prove his point, he unleashed a surge of brutal strength, effortlessly crushing several of White Knight's skeleton soldiers into mere dust. But his arrogant grin vanished in an instant. A relentless storm of bone arrows suddenly darkened the sky, raining down upon him with lethal precision. Neil stared at the main character, his eyes wide with absolute dread. "Just who the hell are you?" he roared, horrified that a mere human could command such an overwhelming undead army. Panicking, he desperately summoned a massive frost shield to deflect the lethal barrage. Refusing to be outdone, Neil tapped into his own dark mana, summoning his personal abominations from the abyss. The first beast to emerge was a level 20 elite ghoul. Its monstrous stats boasted 150,000 health points, an attack power of 1,960, alongside 800 physical and 700 magic defense. It came loaded with the deadly skills, Iron Hook Strike and Disease Cloud. The monstrous creature was a pure nightmare, sickeningly stitched together from the rotting flesh of countless fallen warriors, and right behind it, a swarm of savage ghoul minions clawed their way out of the earth. These level 20 grunts were nothing to scoff at either. Each packed 80,000 health points, an attack power of 1,580, completely backed by 500 physical and 420 magic defense. Armed with the horrific skill, Gnaw, their jaws dripped with a nauseating stench of decayed flesh. The overwhelming odor hit White Knight like a physical blow, forcing him to wrinkle his nose in absolute disgust. "Great! Now the entire battlefield smells like a rotting garbage dump," he muttered in annoyance. Completely done with this foul play, he finally unleashed his brand new trump card, Death Gaze. A blue system window instantly flashed before his eyes. Notification: Death Gaze has been successfully cast upon the target, Neil the Forgotten. The effects were absolutely devastating. Because White Knight possessed a significantly higher tier of existence, every single one of Neil's core attributes plummeted by a staggering 40%. White Knight blinked in genuine surprise. He realized that stepping into the legendary domain of a Death Sovereign had secretly evolved his very life force. Across the battlefield, Neil gasped as his monstrous strength suddenly evaporated into thin air. The Forgotten boss was completely mind-blown, utterly unable to comprehend this terrifying suppression. But White Knight was not about to give him a break. He coldly commanded his legion to sweep away these foul-smelling, low-level trash. "Leave absolutely nothing alive," he ordered. Acting on their master's will, the skeletal army launched a merciless onslaught, shredding through the enemy ranks with an endless barrage of lethal strikes. Drowning in a sea of skeletal blades, Neil let out a blood-curdling shriek of pure despair. "No, I refuse to fade away. I will not be forgotten," he roared, but his final cries fell on deaf ears. Ding! The mechanical system voice chimed perfectly on cue. Target eliminated. You have successfully slayed the level 20 dark gold grade boss, Neil the Forgotten. A massive surge of energy rushed through him. Thanks to a sweet 50% bonus, he instantly absorbed a whopping plus 750,000 experience points. And with his far-ahead passive skill triggering, another juicy plus 150,000 points rained down. Surrounded by a brilliant golden aura of level-up light, White Knight triumphantly ascended to level 12. His power skyrocketed as the system awarded him plus 1 point to all 4 base attributes, an additional plus 1 skill point, and a massive plus 15 free attribute points to distribute. Once again, he simply blinked at the sheer ridiculousness of his growth. Was this supposed to be a boss fight? It felt more like a warm-up. Sifting through the loot, his eyes caught a dark gold gleam, securing an extremely rare drop known as the Cursed Crown Fragment. This sinister artifact was merely 1/10 of a complete dark gold tier treasure. The system hinted that gathering every single piece would trigger an automatic restoration, forging the legendary Cursed Crown in all its dark glory. However, immense power always comes with a terrifying price. Whoever dared to wear it would be afflicted by a vile curse, their very soul constantly eroded by pure, concentrated death energy. White Knight clicked his tongue in pure annoyance. The trash mobs had dropped absolutely nothing, and for a supposedly terrifying boss, Neil's loot pool was embarrassingly stingy. But beggars could not be choosers. He had to hunt down the remaining pieces. Given that these were dark gold fragments, a fully restored crown would easily shatter limits and breach the highly coveted epic grade tier. Tossing the shadowy fragment into his spatial inventory, he decided it was a problem for future him to deal with. Suddenly, slicing through the eerie silence, the mysterious NPC road popped out of thin air. The eccentric guide was absolutely flabbergasted that White Knight had actually granted Neil the sweet release of death. Brilliant! Now, let us go butcher the next victim, he cheered, before hastily clearing his throat. Ahem. Let us valiantly go save the next poor soul in need. Road eagerly beckoned him forward, pointing towards the shadowy abyss ahead. He warned that the next target was lurking just around the corner, though this upcoming battle would completely shatter the difficulty scale. White Knight just stared, not expecting this nightmare realm to hold even more bosses. Crossing his arms, White Knight coolly replied that if the next fight was going to be a headache, he was perfectly fine walking away right now. Panicking at the thought of losing his champion, Road desperately shoved a glowing skill book into his hands. White Knight's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. If you were hoarding something this good, he growled, why the hell did you hide it until now? Ignoring the shady behavior, he inspected the ultimate loot. It was a level 1, C-rank active skill book bearing a truly legendary name, Corpse Explosion. The terrifying ability allowed the caster to violently detonate any fallen body or scattered remains. The resulting blast would inflict devastating magic damage to every single enemy caught within a 5-meter blast radius. The only catch? Boss corpses were completely immune to the effect. The destructive output was calculated at 10% of the detonated target's maximum health points, stacked with an extra 100% of his spell power. It featured a massive 30-meter casting range, triggered instantly, but required a 30-second cooldown and drained 300 mana points per use. A ruthless grin spread across his face as he read the system prompt. This was not just any standard magic. This was the ultimate area of effect wipeout technique he had been waiting for. Without a single second of hesitation, he poured his resources into promoting the devastating tome. A blinding light completely swallowed the book, instantly evolving it into a terrifying B-rank mastery known as Advanced Corpse Explosion. The upgrade was absolutely game-changing. The blast radius doubled to 10 meters, though boss corpses remained off-limits. But the true horror was the damage scaling, skyrocketing to a brutal 15% of the target's maximum health, heavily amplified by 150% of his total spell power. The casting range expanded to an overwhelming 50 meters. The instant cast and 30-second cooldown remained untouched, completely balancing out the hefty new price tag of 600 mana points. Eager to test his new toy, he locked onto a nearby enemy corpse and triggered the spell. Boom! A violent shockwave of pure destructive energy erupted outwards, completely obliterating everything within its massive blast zone. Even White Knight was completely caught off guard by the sheer magnitude and devastating range of the eruption. Road was practically dancing with joy, showering him in endless praises, but White Knight simply tuned out the noisy background chatter. His blood was pumping with pure adrenaline. Armed with this catastrophic area of effect skill, speed running through hordes of monsters was about to become an absolute walk in the park. Exactly 1 hour later, carving his way through the abyss, White Knight muttered how ridiculously expansive this cursed land of the forgotten truly was. But the trek ended as an imposing figure blocked his path. It was his next target, Walter the Forgotten. This shadow made for his 7th consecutive boss encounter in this hellscape. Without wasting a breath, White Knight instantly triggered Advanced Corpse Explosion. But as the dust settled, Walter stood his ground, letting out a terrifying roar that proved he would not go down without an epic bloodbath. With his dying breath, the defeated foe spat out a final curse. He swore the White Knight would eventually pay the ultimate price. But words could not stop the inevitable. Walter dissolved into nothingness, leaving behind his hard-earned loot. The White Knight had successfully gathered all 7 fragments. A system window glowed before his eyes as he eagerly checked what legendary gear could be forged from the remains. "Stop! Do not combine them!" Road screamed in absolute terror. He warned that the dark artifact would devour his very soul. But the warning came too late. The fragments were already fusing into a sinister crown. The White Knight frowned, asking what kind of nonsense he was blabbering about. Trembling, Road stared at the ominous headpiece. Despair filled his spectral eyes as he whispered that it was already too late. A chilling chime echoed in his mind. The system officially announced the acquisition of the dreaded artifact. The cursed crown was born. Dark magic pulsed as the fragments seamlessly merged, restoring the ancient relic to its former glory. Meanwhile, the system declared his dungeon exploration rate had surged to an impressive 50%. It was exactly as he had calculated. By promoting the scattered fragments, the final grade of the crafted gear had successfully evolved to an entirely new tier. However, a 50% completion rate meant one terrifying truth. Something else was still lurking in the shadows. Panic-stricken, Rode begged him to cast the dark crown away before he was doomed. If he held onto it, the corrosive death aura would consume his sanity. He would inevitably be transformed into a mindless, wandering corpse, just like the cursed souls trapped in this wasteland. Yet, the White Knight simply stood frozen in place. Desperation completely took over Rode, screaming at the top of his lungs to toss the damned item away instantly. Red warning screens flooded his vision. The system blared a critical alert. He was actively suffering from severe death energy erosion, inflicted by the sinister crown. But fate had a different plan. The chaotic death energy swirling inside his body had already hit its absolute maximum capacity. He could not absorb a single drop more until he burned through his current reserves. Because of his unique vessel, the overflowing dark mana was completely harmless to him. But before he could celebrate this loophole, a violent earthquake ruptured the dead soil. The violent tremors snapped the White Knight back to reality. He gripped his weapon tightly, questioning if an unimaginable monstrosity was truly sleeping beneath their feet. Without missing a beat, he commanded his loyal skeleton battalion to form an ironclad defensive formation. Suddenly, an eerie, pale light began seeping through the cracked earth. Absolute dread washed over Rode's face as he realized exactly what was awakening. Amidst the trembling earth, a blood-red coffin trimmed with pure gold slowly ascended from the abyss. The system flashed an apocalyptic warning. The dense aura of the cursed crown had shattered an ancient seal. It had forcefully awakened Lich Franklin, the supreme nightmare resting beneath the land of the forgotten. Rode's voice cracked with centuries of grief. He revealed that this terrifying lich was the architect of their eternal suffering, the very monster who cursed their prosperous home into this barren wasteland. Falling to his knees, Rode pleaded with the White Knight to destroy the monstrous anomaly. He swore on his shattered soul that he would pay any price for this vengeance. Staring at the desperate spirit, the White Knight realized this NPC was no longer just a system construct. He had become a true comrade in arms. With a determined nod, he accepted the burden. A golden character panel materialized in the air. Rode's true identity was finally revealed. He was the proud mayor of Sunset Town, and the fragile form standing before the knight was nothing but a lingering phantom. The stats were staggering. He was a level 20 special elite phantom, boasting a flawless vitality pool of exactly 100,000 out of 100,000 health points. His signature ability was Soul Possession, a divine buff that boosted a target's core attribute by a massive 20%. Furthermore, his ethereal state rendered him completely immune to all physical strikes. The shock of the awakening had shattered his amnesia. Rode remembered his glorious past as the town's beloved leader. But reality was cruel. He was now the sole surviving spirit of a slaughtered people. A majestic prompt flashed. The White Knight boldly accepted the unique hidden quest, Rode's final request. The ultimate objective? Annihilate Lich Franklin. The reward? An absolute mystery waiting to be claimed. Instantly, a surge of spectral energy wrapped around him. The soul possession buff took effect, skyrocketing his spirit attribute by 20%. Filled with boundless gratitude, Rode bowed deeply to his savior. Knowing the catastrophic power of the Lich, the Phantom Mayor made a solemn vow. He would lay his own existence on the line, fighting side by side with the knight until the bitter end. The monstrous entity stepping out of the coffin was none other than the level 20 Frost Lich, Franklin. However, decades of slumber had severely deteriorated his divine strength, heavily suppressing his true level. But an epic-grade boss was still a force of nature. He possessed a maximum of 15 million health points, though his current vitality was locked at 5 million. He wielded 48,000 spell power, 5,000 physical defense, and a staggering 8,000 magic defense. His elemental resistances were pure despair, a near-invincible 95% immunity to ice, 30% resistance to shift shadow, and 25% defiance against death magic. His vast arsenal was a nightmare of magic. Absolute mastery over frost, shadow, and death spells. He was the textbook definition of an unstoppable immortal catastrophe. Even with a fractured soul core, his presence alone suffocated the battlefield. The ancient Lich narrowed his glowing eyes, genuinely amused that the pathetic human mayor from his past had somehow clung to life. But then, an all-too-familiar magical signature caught his attention. He felt the immense power radiating from the restored relic. In a voice that shook the heavens, he commanded the crown to fly back to its one true master. Silence fell over the ruined wasteland. Much to the absolute shock of the undead king, the dark artifact did not even twitch. A fearless smirk crossed the White Knight's face. He coldly declared that his new treasure had absolutely no reason to obey a rotting corpse. The cursed crown was a true legendary-grade artifact, equipable from level 10 to 20, boasting a flawless 1,000 out of 1,000 durability. Under normal circumstances, only the Lich himself could wield this demonic gear, but the White Knight was no ordinary player. As the supreme death sovereign, he could shatter the system's rules and equip it by sheer force. The system's hidden mechanic was clear. Once he dragged this arrogant boss to hell, the suffocating equipment restrictions would permanently be lifted for good. The base stats alone were absolutely mouth-watering. Requiring level 15 to unlock, it instantly granted a massive boost of 100 physical defense. But the real magic lay in its secondary buffs. An extra 200 magic defense, an insane 2,000 health points, 4,000 mana, and a god-tier boost of 75 points to every single attribute. Without a second thought, he slammed the crown onto his head. The passive effects immediately surged through his veins. A 10% amplification to spirit, a solid 30% resistance to all curses, combined with the deadly drawback of endless energy erosion. Its first divine trait was the power of curse, a devastating passive ability that forcibly infused every single spell cast with a soul-rotting hex effect. Upon impact, it would randomly inflict 2 chaotic debuffs on the enemy. These afflictions lasted for 5 agonizing seconds, operating on a perfectly synchronized 5-second cooldown. The final trump card was the Curse Aura, a terrifying area of effect domination skill. The moment it ignited, every foe caught within a massive 100-meter radius suffered a crippling 30% reduction to all speeds. Attack speed, movement velocity, and spell-casting times were all heavily suppressed. Though it drained 200 mana every single second, it possessed 0 cooldown restrictions. Enraged by this ultimate disrespect, the Immortal King slammed his staff into the earth. A portal of pure darkness ripped open as Franklin immediately summoned his elite battalion of Shadow Knights. The enemy vanguard stood at level 20. 200,000 health points shielded their massive frames. They boasted 6,800 attack power, backed by 1,800 points in both physical and magical defense. Armed with Shadow Charge, Power of Shadow, and Shadow Shield, they were absolute monsters. An epic-grade boss's personal army was on a completely different level compared to some trash-tier dark gold mobs. But the White Knight didn't even flinch. He locked onto the underlings and commanded his loyal skeleton legion to charge straight into the slaughter. His skeleton knights violently clashed against the enemy's shadow steeds, while his undead archers blotted out the sky with a devastating rain of arrows. With a cold smirk, our main character unleashed Curse Aura. The enemy's speed was instantly slashed by 30%. Forget a galloping warhorse. Even a sports car would be reduced to a miserable crawling snail under this crushing pressure. Franklin howled in absolute fury, completely powerless to stop the massacre. Meanwhile, the White Knight simply stood there, soaking in the sweet taste of absolute dominance. Having reached level 15, he was already armed to the teeth with 2 legendary artifacts. Furthermore, the Death Scripture had forcefully multiplied his base stats to a terrifying degree. When compared to his miserable state upon first entering the Land of the Forgotten, his current attributes had practically skyrocketed past the double mark. The only bitter pill to swallow was that the cursed crown had hit its growth ceiling. Seeing his arrogance, Franklin hissed a freezing warning, claiming the boy was desperately begging for death. But our hero fired back with a chilling promise. He wouldn't even give the lich a single second to draw breath. Without hesitation, he blasted Franklin with the terrifying death gaze. The system window chimed with absolute authority. It judged the White Knight's life form hierarchy to be far superior to the undead scum. Because of this absolute suppression, the cursed agony instantly locked onto Franklin. Shadow damage equal to 100% of spell power began violently ripping through his body every second for 5 excruciating ticks. The Great Lich crashed down to his bony knees, his mind completely shattered by the sheer impossibility of the situation. Staring up in horror, he begged to know the monster's true identity. The White Knight coldly stated that a dead man didn't need a name. That absolute disrespect ignited a raging fire inside Franklin. How dare a lowly, wretched human mock a supreme lich? He roared to the heavens, declaring that no matter what kind of freak the boy was, his grave would undoubtedly be dug right here in the Land of the Forgotten. A devastating tornado of dark magic erupted straight from Franklin's chest. Driven by pure bloodlust and a greedy desire to steal our main character's overwhelming power, the lich chanted a forbidden summoning ritual. The earth shattered to reveal Cacus, a level 20 undead bone dragon. Though massive, it bore heavy, ancient wounds that had forcefully degraded its original rank. But make no mistake, it was still an epic-grade calamity. Its health bar sat at an intimidating 20 million out of 20 million. It boasted 12,000 attack points, 10,000 physical defense, and 6,000 magical resistance, crowned with a 30% immunity to death-type elements. Its arsenal included absolute nightmares like Bone Prison, Bone Spike Hell, and Death Storm. The system powerfully flashed in the hero's eyes, confirming the dragon's arrival, and locking his dimensional exploration rate at a massive 90%. Even the White Knight felt a cold sweat drop. The absolute madman had actually dragged a legendary bone dragon onto the battlefield. Just as his instincts had warned him, the trial issued by the City Lord of EC City was nothing short of a suicidal death trap. With an earth-shattering roar, Cacus unleashed a catastrophic wave of blazing breath. Instantly, the loyal skeleton army threw themselves forward, forming an impenetrable wall of bones to shield their master. Franklin's glowing eyes nearly popped out of his skull. How in the world did a bunch of trash-tier skeleton grunts manage to completely nullify his dragon's ultimate breath? The system sang its beautiful melody. Our hero had ruthlessly burned through all his death energy points to forcefully evolve a single-target skeleton warrior, multiplying its entire attribute pool by an insane 640%. Instantly, the violent backlash of the cursed crown bit into him, searing his soul with brutal death energy erosion. Yet, his death energy reservoir passively regenerated by plus 10 points. Feeling the energy flow right back, he couldn't help but smirk, treating this terrifying cursed artifact like an unlimited portable power bank. His blood boiled with the thrill of battle. He was absolutely itching to test this monstrous strength. Meanwhile, a heavily pressured Franklin was pushed to the absolute brink of insanity. The Lich screamed in pure jealousy over the stolen crown. Desperate, he invoked the devastating frost hell, sending a massive spike of freezing death straight into our hero's chest. Mad laughter echoed from Franklin's rotting jaws as the lethal ray connected. He was absolutely certain that a pathetic, fragile human body would instantly shatter into a million frozen pieces. But the Lich's twisted smile quickly vanished. The human was still standing. He had perfectly utilized the legendary life-sharing skill, though Franklin quickly deduced the technique had a fatal flaw. Seeing the opening, the cunning Lich wasted zero time. He instantly chanted the apocalyptic incantation, Death and Decay. In a flash, a massive bone prison erupted from the soil, completely locking our main character in a cage of despair, and right on cue, the devastating bone spike hell was triggered. The earth tore open as countless brutal spikes impaled the surrounding skeleton army. The White Knight's eyes narrowed. The Lich was cleverly using massive area of effect spells to slaughter the summons and forcefully sever the life-sharing connection. But our genius hero was one step ahead. He instantly unsummoned his weaker troops to free up his command space. Try breaking a lifelink when there's no weak link left to hit. With a single dominating gesture, he ordered his remaining elite skeletons to bypass the dragon and capture the leader. Cut off the head of the snake, and the entire bandit army would crumble. It was time for a swift and brutal decapitation strike. Franklin nearly jumped out of his rotting skin as an undead soldier warped right into his personal space. Panic-stricken, the Lich bombarded the skeleton with non-stop devastating magical blasts. The White Knight commanded his summon to hold the line at all costs. Eventually, the sheer volume of damage violently shattered the undead warrior into bone dust. Franklin laughed victoriously, proudly declaring that the foolish human had played his final card and lost. But a terrifying smirk crept across our hero's face. Lost? You must be joking. The system chimed once more as he burned his death energy points. Out of the dust, the violently reinforced skeleton regenerated. Absolute dread gripped Franklin's core as the unstoppable nightmare began walking toward him again. The Lich was frozen in sheer, unadulterated terror. And in the blink of an eye, the overcharged skeleton swung its blade, instantly slicing the great boss into absolute nothingness. The golden system notification exploded across the screen. Target Franklin eliminated. Blessed with a massive 70% experience multiplier, he instantly absorbed a mind-numbing 12.75 million experience points. Golden light cascaded down as he forcefully broke through to level 17. He gained +1 to all base attributes, secured +1 precious skill point, and received a massive treasure trove of +15 free attribute points. In the aftermath, the level 20 epic grade calamity known as the Undead Bone Dragon Cacus finally fell in defeat. Once again, the 70% buff multiplied his rewards. A god-tier payout of 25 million experience points flooded his system. Another pillar of golden light erupted, pushing his existence straight into the terrifying realm of level 19. The system chimed with glorious news. He had just secured +1 to every single attribute, alongside 1 precious skill point and a whopping 15 free attribute points. Not to mention, he had just etched his name in history as the absolute first player in the entire Blue Star Zone to obliterate an epic grade boss. His monumental reward? +100 to his core attribute, 50 massive skill points, and 50 intermediate life soul stones. White Knight smirked at the glowing interface. Even he had to admit, his own growth speed was nothing short of monstrous. His gaze locked onto the shimmering soul stones. A wave of absolute relief washed over him as the terrifying countdown on his mortal life finally ceased to be a threat. Resting in his inventory were 50 advanced life soul stones. Once absorbed, every single one of these miraculous gems would literally grant him another year of breath. Without a second thought, he devoured their essence. His life force surged, instantly rocketing his remaining time to 51 years. In a single brilliant stroke, the Grim Reaper hovering over his shoulder had been banished. Suddenly, a golden broadcast echoed across the heavens. The system proudly declared to the entire Blue Star Zone that White Knight had achieved the impossible by soloing an epic-grade nightmare. The Guild Master of Wealthy World gasped in sheer terror and awe. He instantly knew their only path to survival was to latch onto this supreme powerhouse's coattails. As the world-shaking news sent shockwaves everywhere, Shu urgently turned to Ruan. They had to break out of this pathetic novice village immediately and forge an alliance with this legendary White Knight. Ruan's eyes gleamed with a calculating light. She couldn't deny the overwhelming might of this mysterious conqueror. Yet, a confident smirk played on her lips. Whether the man behind the mask was White Knight or Mubai, she was absolutely certain he would become another puppet to her feminine charms. Meanwhile, White Knight was busy inspecting his brand new epic rarity treasure, the Dragon Skull Pendant. Crushing this artifact would instantly bind an epic tier beast to his soul, the fearsome undead bone dragon. He stared at the item, completely mesmerized by its dark aura. The mere thought of dominating the skies on an epic flying beast sent his blood boiling with absolute hype. But why settle for epic? He triggered his unique promotion ability, miraculously evolving it into a legendary-grade treasure known as the Frost Horn. One single blast from this ancient horn possessed the heaven-defying power to rip open the undead realm, summoning a legendary tier frost dragon. He raised the horn to his lips and exhaled. The fabric of reality tore apart to form a sinister void. Instantly, a suffocating, bone-chilling miasma of death flooded the entire battlefield. A colossal frost dragon emerged from the abyss. Its glowing eyes locked onto the tiny figure below, utterly insulted that a lowly, pathetic human had dared to command its presence. But before the beast could unleash its wrath, a blinding light of holy purification slammed into its spectral body. White Knight stumbled back in a total panic, screaming at the towering monster to keep its distance. Yet, defying all common sense, the prideful tyrant of the skies instantly whined like a beaten puppy. Trembling under his holy aura, the dragon eagerly bowed its massive head, willingly submitting as his loyal steed. A triumphant chime echoed as his mount interface finally unlocked. Once again, the global broadcast system erupted, screaming to the heavens that White Knight had secured a mount. Triggered by this heaven-defying feat, the Blue Star Zone's ultimate mount leaderboard violently crashed into the server's interface. The massive beast playfully shrank down into a pocket-sized dragon, comfortably perching upon his shoulder. Scrolling through the brand-new panels, White Knight realized these pets possessed their own global rankings and a terrifying arsenal of exclusive skills. Gazing at his pet's status window, he nearly choked. His Frost Dragon wasn't just legendary, it possessed a god-tier evolutionary path, starting fresh at level 0. The system rules were strict, however. This apocalyptic beast's maximum growth could never exceed its master's current level by more than 10. But its base stats were pure insanity. Absolute loyalty maxed out at 100, a reality-blurring 200% boost to movement speed, and a perfectly full health pool of 1 million out of 1 million. And this nightmare would only grow stronger with every level. The beast boasted an oceanic mana reserve of 20,000 out of 20,000, a crushing physical attack of 12,000, and an absolutely mind-melting spell power of 80,000. Defensively, it was a walking fortress. 10,000 physical defense paired with 12,000 magic defense. Its elemental armor was a joke to pierce, flaunting an 80% immunity to ice, 70% to water, 60% to darkness, and a flat 40% resistance to everything else. Its starter skill tree alone was enough to make entire guilds weep. It commanded Frost Dragon Breath, the aura of Dragon Might, and the tactical size reduction. And the true terror? As this legendary calamity leveled up, it would organically awaken even more world-ending abilities. The Frost Dragon Breath was absolute overkill. It unleashed a freezing hellscape, dealing 300% of its spell power every single second to anything foolish enough to stand within a 5-meter radius. To make matters worse, it inflicted crippling stiffness and brutal slowing effects for 10 agonizing seconds. Then there was Dragon Might, a terrifying suppression wave worthy of a true sovereign, blanketing every living soul within a massive 1,000-meter radius. Any pathetic creature boasting a lower life tier than this king would suffer a devastating 10 to 20% penalty to all of their combat attributes. The wider the evolutionary gap, the more crushing the psychological deterrence became. If the target's level gap doubled, that crippling debuff would literally double in power. Finally, its size reduction mastery allowed the behemoth to compress its massive frame. This granted it unparalleled tactical flexibility for close-quarters combat or slipping into ancient, narrow dungeons. White Knight just stood there, completely breathless. The absurd, game-breaking power of a mythical-grade entity had completely shattered his wildest expectations. Back in the real world, the global forums were violently imploding. The entire player base stared at the new leaderboard in absolute horror, their minds breaking over the fact that White Knight was already riding a mythical frost dragon. Tears of frustration stained their keyboards. It genuinely felt like this monster of a player was experiencing a totally different, VIP version of the game. Veterans desperately pleaded with the newbies to stop comparing themselves to this gaming god. One tragic player shared a hilarious story about his own guild boss, a pitiful level 3 noob cursed with an absolute trash F-rank talent. Hearing about that spectacular failure, the heavy atmosphere of despair finally lifted. Suddenly, their own pathetic progress didn't feel so agonizing anymore. While the world lost its collective mind, White Knight was casually tossing snacks to his apocalyptic dragon. That's when his spirit companion, Road, urgently whispered that he had finally pinpointed the dark phylactery's aura. Eyes flashing with killing intent, White Knight demanded its coordinates. Road simply drifted forward, signaling to follow his lead. Plunging into the heart of the cursed forest, they finally stood before the sinister vessel holding Franklin's soul. The cursed object pulsed with an ominous, epic-grade light. Scanning its stats, it boasted an impenetrable barrier of 1 million out of 1 million durability points. This dark relic was Franklin's ultimate trump card, forged in the fires of his absolute prime. Deep within its indestructible shell flickered the unholy essence of his soul fire. As long as this vessel remained unblemished, that wretched lich could endlessly crawl back from the abyss. White Knight couldn't help but chuckle darkly at the hilariously absurd durability of this cursed anchor. Road's spectral form flared with an ancient vengeance. His voice dropped to an icy whisper as he demanded the honor of personally obliterating this scum from existence. But suddenly, unhinged laughter erupted from the glowing vessel. Franklin's arrogant voice echoed from within the phylactery, viciously mocking Road and asking what a pathetic, broken remnant could ever hope to achieve against his absolute power. Blazing fury ignited within Road's eyes. He crushed the phylactery between his trembling hands, roaring out a merciless death sentence for Franklin. The forgotten boss struggled violently against his fate, but his resistance was completely futile. Road's vengeance was absolute. Turning toward White Knight, the man offered his deepest, soul-stirring gratitude for single-handedly pulling Sunset Town from the brink of destruction. Tears of absolute relief streamed down his battered face. In that very moment, a blinding cascade of system notifications flooded White Knight's vision. First up on the list, a massive reward of 1,000 soul points. The grand prize for utterly obliterating the soul of the level 20 epic tier boss. The forgotten Franklin. But the insane rewards didn't stop there. Glorious 70% experience multiplier kicked in, granting him a staggering 12.75 million experience points. A brilliant golden aura washed over his body. He had finally broken through to level 20. His stats skyrocketed with +1 to all base attributes, a precious skill point, and a massive 15 free attribute points to shape his build. The system formally recognized Road's grueling quest as complete. The final payout? An additional 10 million experience points, accompanied by the sweet chime of 1,000 gold coins. His area exploration progress completely maxed out at a perfect 100%. City Lord C2's seemingly impossible trial was officially conquered. A glowing system prompt blinked on his interface. The next objective was crystal clear. Return to East Sea City at once and claim his well-deserved bounty from the City Lord. And the loot pile was absolutely legendary. 1,200,000 gold coins raining down, 20 level 5 attribute gems, 10 epic tier materials known as Millennium Ice Crystals, and 24 basic Destiny Soul Stones to top it all off. Upon stepping into the grand East Sea City teleportation plaza, an eerie silence greeted him. Not a single other player had set foot in this advanced territory. The entire player base was still miserably stuck below level 10. Taking full advantage of the empty super city, White Knight decided to take his new ride for a spin. He chanted the summoning spell for his Frost Dragon. The very air turned freezing cold as the majestic beast materialized in its true, terrifying form. Now, our main character's only goal was to track down C2 and cash in that epic quest. He vaulted onto the dragon's broad, icy back and took to the skies. Down below, the local non-playable characters gasped in pure shock, trembling as a massive, draconic shadow instantly swallowed the city streets. It didn't take long for C2 to spot this heaven-shaking entrance. Seeing the boy descending on a literal frost dragon, the City Lord realized this rookie had completely shattered all of his wildest expectations. The moment the massive claws violently hit the ground, a panicked C2 immediately ordered him to shrink the terrifying beast down. One wrong move from that dragon's tail, and the entire majestic estate would be reduced to rubble. With the pet safely dismissed, the two of them stepped into the private, heavily guarded lounge. C2's sharp eyes narrowed as he deeply analyzed the boy. He could sense it in his very bones. White Knight's aura wasn't just a basic sovereign tier class. There was something far more terrifying hidden underneath. Confusion crossed White Knight's face. He pressed the City Lord for answers. Were all sovereign tier professions not created equal? C2 sighed heavily, admitting his own vast knowledge had limits. But since the boy had flawlessly conquered his brutal trial, the City Lord was finally ready to share some classified world lore. Inwardly, White Knight was rolling his eyes. He couldn't help but curse the old man's stinginess. Where was the actual physical loot for finishing the quest? Ignorant of the boy's silent complaints, C2 began his grand explanation. In the treacherous realm of the Myriad Worlds, every single class was strictly divided by an unforgiving hierarchy. At the absolute bottom sat the normal tier. Above them were the rare hidden professions, closely followed by the much stronger advanced hidden tier. Breaking into the realm of legends were the unique hidden professions. But sitting proudly at the absolute peak of the pyramid were the godlike, exclusive hidden professions. And White Knight's Death Sovereign class? It reigned supreme at that highest possible tier. For a player at his current level to awaken such an exclusive power, it utterly defied the very laws of the game. Normally, the absolute earliest a player could even attempt to unlock this mythical tier of power was at the daunting level 29 bottleneck. C2 was completely baffled by this impossible anomaly. Naturally, our main character kept his mouth firmly shut about his overpowered substitute system. But the City Lord quickly interrupted his silent victory lap with a grim warning. The laws of heaven are perfectly balanced. The more terrifying your class, the more brutal the path to leveling it up becomes. For the Death Sovereign to truly evolve and unleash its apocalyptic potential, it needed to be baptized in oceans of blood. He had to surround himself with absolute, relentless carnage, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. A catastrophic war was already brewing on the blood-soaked horizon. The god-forsaken land was destined to be consumed by hellfire, the supreme authority of their realm. The legendary Divine Dragon Hall had placed their ultimate bets entirely on him. They desperately needed White Knight to cross into enemy territory, slaughter his way to the top, and conquer foreign lands in their name. This wasn't just about personal glory anymore. Only through his absolute, bloody conquest would the human race finally earn the right to step onto the grand, universal stage of the Myriad Worlds. But White Knight quickly spotted a massive flaw in this grand plan. The server's national borders were still locked completely tight. Without missing a beat, C2 slid a sealed stack of classified documents across the table. His new mission? Deliver this letter to a very specific, hidden contact. In exchange for this dangerous delivery, that contact would hand over a mythical artifact, a supreme treasure powerful enough to shatter the server's border restrictions. The moment White Knight flipped open the file, his eyes widened in absolute shock. The face staring back at him from the bounty picture was none other than Jian. Ding, a harsh system alert chimed deep in his mind. He had officially been bound by a soul contract to the Divine Dragon Hall. From this moment on, he was the sole chosen vanguard, authorized to invade and level up in foreign empires. The penalty for treason was absolute. Should he ever dare to violate this sacred pact, the entire godlike might of the Divine Dragon Hall would hunt him down to the bitter ends of the earth. But there was a massive glimmer of hope. If he could help the Hall completely conquer and reunify the chaotic god-forsaken land, the heavy chains of this contract would instantly shatter into dust. C2 looked the boy dead in the eyes, making a solemn, heavy vow. The second White Knight broke through to the third tier of power. The City Lord would personally sponsor his elite initiation into the Hall. To seal this legendary deal, C2 tossed him a final, incredible reward. A master badge of absolute authority. With this little trinket in hand, absolutely no doors in East Sea City would ever be closed to him. White Knight clutched the item with deep reverence and gratitude. It was the legendary East Sea token, serial number 007. Forged by the City Lord's own majestic hands, this artifact was so breathtakingly rare that only a handful existed in the entire server. But the real jaw-dropping prize? Whoever held this token was instantly recognized by the system as the absolute master of the incredibly luxurious courtyard number 0007. A massive, unstoppable grin spread across White Knight's face. He had hit the absolute jackpot. He was officially a premium, high-class property owner in a massive Tier 1 supercity. And that epic milestone wraps up today's incredible journey. Want to see how our boy dominates his new territory? Catch all the weekly chapter updates for this God tier series exclusively over on my second channel, Manhwa Updater. So, smash that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next adrenaline-pumping adventure. The gears of fate are already turning for the next chapter. If you refuse to be left behind as this epic saga unfolds, awaken your power by joining our legendary squad. Thank you for walking this path with us today. Keep your aura blazing, stay absolute, and I will see you in the next thrilling adventure.